The narrative opens in a building under construction. The lad glances at his cell phone in the corner while he is working. Disappointed, he wonders whether he failed once more. He is looking at the outcome of a job interview he went to, where they informed him he was quite talented, but sadly, the process could not be carried on. A man names him McMay at that exact moment, therefore identifying the youngest person in the house. It's the manager who probes whether he is, by chance, slacking off at work. Another man claims he is lying even though he responds he has finished everything. That is to say, he looks and notes the lad had painted the whole wall previously. The manager then adds he is not slinking off exactly. Having just 1 year of experience, he wonders how the lad manages to work so brilliantly. The lad claims he climbs the ladder since he has been working in places like this since he graduated, and thinks the man would also be fine if he drank less daily. Our lad returns to painting the wall as the overweight man advises they go out for a smoke. He adds he should be more careful about what he says to older folks. Still, he experiences something unusual at that moment. What's wrong, the friend wonders. He says it's nothing major, with his hand on his back, and that he's good while wondering why the medications had already worn off. Because of a day he had to carry a panel, he has been battling with persistent back discomfort that hasn't gone away for around 6 months. That brings the workday to finish. The overweight man questions why his supervisor orders him to cover Tasiak's task. Given the youngster is acting in all the right manner, he feels it's clear-cut. The overweight man answers that it's clear he's doing it since the youngster is working hard. The boss is sucking up to Tasiak. He then asks if the protagonist's back is good at that point, to which he responds yes and thanks him for his worries. The manager then inquires as to whether he would want to return to carpentry. Embarrassed, our lad says right now he cannot manage demanding labor. The manager says he could join them for beer or go home and relax. Our lad just says he has to visit the doctor to pick up additional meds. He then grabs a taxi. His situation prevents him from working without painkillers. He has conducted many interviews at different businesses. Still, he has not found a respectable employment. Since his resume is constantly turned down and right now he finds himself at a dead end at Hanwell Medical Hospital, thus people refuse even an interview. Tasiak has lately been seeking for different administrative positions, since he clearly cannot operate with physical force anymore. This herniated disc is causing daily weakening of his strength. The doctor keeps pressing on his back. He yells right away. He cannot continue with this kind of rigorous labor, as the doctor advises him that his nerves between the fourth and the fifth vertebrae are only growing worse. Tasiak tries to clarify that he cannot create income any other way. The doctor advises him to cease acting young and to find a better place fast. He will thus turn out like his father otherwise. He recalls 13 years ago his father passed away on a building site. From the tragic accident, he had no prospect of survival. The president of the company hired the workers vanished without addressing the matter. The original contractor blamed the company for all. They obtained $20,000 in pay thanks to a private company. The doctor asks his mother at that point what she would think if she knew he was working like this. His difficulties were only getting worse even if the medicines helped. Tasiak tries to clarify that no other place pays as nicely as this one. The doctor says he is at a loss for words and places his hand on his face. He yells that Tasiak shouldn't visit back there if he keeps behaving this way. He guides him to show him the exit. Tasiak claims not even paid yet. The doctor merely advises him not to pay, though, and not to go back there either. The doctor then gets out his cell phone. He posts $2,000 to the account of the protagonist. Slumping in his chair, he wonders why someone called Harujun met this lad and led a depressing existence. Tasiak enters one of the other hospital rooms. Sitting next to a sick woman in one of the beds is him. He probes whether his mother is feeling better. She questions why he sent that money when she says she has been far better lately since he has been giving her such great care. Though she shows him she received $1,500, he has no idea what she is talking about. Actually, the doctor forwarded it to Tasiak's mother under his name. Now he's perplexed and unsure of who sent Ida's uncle, the man from work, the doctor, or another else entirely. She inquires about the state of affairs at work, and he reports that everyone treats him kindly. She claims she can tell her son has been diligent. Should such be the case, she must also fight that disease. Armoy asks whether she is tired and assures her it is normal for her to fall asleep. She replies, it doesn't matter as she's constantly weary and wants to take use of his presence. He assures her not to worry about it since he will be sleeping next to her and they can discuss when she wakes up. She thanks him with that. Armoy then dozes on the hospital bench. Rising to cover him, she says he still has that naive, innocent aspect. It reminded her in some respects of her husband, and the scent revealed his presence working at a building site. She stated she knew very well how he felt and would always be appreciative of him. He didn't have to hide all of this only for himself, as she too was going to fight that illness. The crew shows up at the same building site the next day ready for another workday. The supervisor welcomes Teziok and probes Cholson and the overweight man about why he hasn't taken a bath. He says he drank a lot last night and apologizes. The manager advises him just to be careful and not to worry Cholson's employees. He then orders Teziok to get seated and sip some coffee. When he asks the lad how he is doing, he says he is exactly as all not better nor worse. The manager next inquires as to whether he would like to resume carpenter employment. Teziok seeks to clarify that he would find it quite challenging to do that. The manager says he should work as a carpenter and make considerably more as he understands his family is going through a difficult period. Teziok claims he understands it, yet his back won't hold up. The manager then advises him not to speak since he does not want to. Our lad already understands that the money he received wasn't from this management. Although he's not the kind to aid him personally, that guy seems to simply care for him since he performs well at his work. He comes to the conclusion that a specific Uncle Hamwoo was the one paying the money to his mother. When he phones to thank him, the man answers perplexingly. Teziok says it's him and inquires as to if the man who sent the money to his mother responded yes. Our lad promises to pay back the favor, but the man simply asks whether he still works at a building site. He gets chastised right away for answering that he is. The man advises him to leave such kind of environment, else he would die there as well. He should start seeking for another employment right away. Saying that this man is always like that, our lad pats his back. Then he notices something on his phone. The chance he had been waiting for following 200 attempts. At last they had started to show. He passed the first step of recruiting for the Elson group, hence the next day he had a job interview. Still, a window opens up exactly at that moment. Our lad is perplexed, and it states his wish has been granted. Uncertain about what that meant, our lad asked. This discussion about a granted wish? His hand simply passed through it when he tried to touch it. The strangest thing was that it did not vanish either, so he started to doubt himself. The window changed though and indicated he had found the road to become an official employee at the Elson Group Open. He then asked whether he wanted to start the lesson. Calling out a man near him, he inquired whether but that one was the last. He questioned another one whether by chance he was seeing a tiny window floating in front of him. The man inquired right away how he had the courage to show up for work intoxicated like that. Our lad claims that's not truly it and apologies. Knowing that just he could see it, he dashes out of there. Seeking reasons, he heads to the bathroom and examines himself in the mirror. Furthermore, devoid of reflection was the window. He doesn't sure now if he is dreaming or going insane. Though what is this tutorial business? He wants to work at Elson. Though it sounds like something from a light novel, this is not the easiest thing he could grasp. Still, he claims he'll engage this tutorial since his dream is to work for a large corporation. And with it, the mission of the permanent employee starts. The system cautions him, though, that he will lose all memory since birth if he quits midway through the year. The system promises he will get a written assessment and a personality profile, but he wonders how something could wipe his memories. He felt a bit perplexed. The system seemed to be treating things really seriously. But he was determined to witness this craziness until the conclusion, ever since he arrived. After that, he becomes a job seeker and might see the eyes of someone who hires him, thanks to a skill known as Elson Group. Seeing the eyes of a recruiter, he questions what this company is about. He says he feels a little lightheaded. At least, he will have to test this. The algorithm alerts him that it would let him spot possible evaluation flaws. Still, extended use would lower his physical power. He chooses to at least investigate to find out if this is factual or not. He visits a bookshop carrying an insane idea. He's going to apply the ability on some evaluation books to see whether he can obtain any kind of insight on what he needs to grow since he doesn't know whether it works or not. He considers once more how to apply the ability and yells in his head to wake the eyes of the unemployed, but nothing results. He looks at the book searching for something. Still, the object doesn't seem to react until the small window shows up. It advises that this ability is limited to the Elson Group building. He becomes enraged, claiming that this object is devoid of conditions. But he has a brilliant idea and purchases several job booklets from the retailer, then returns to his Elson Group workplace. Some pages of the books began to highlight when he turned it on. He then committed those issues and question answers to memory during the whole evening. The exam day then finally arrived. The system advised he would have to dress in a decent suit. Still, the poor man was having trouble controlling his anxieties. He was there reading the books and studying the content, nevertheless not ready to give up even beneath the scorching heavens. He made great effort to commit everything he had read to memory on his way to the test. Although he was unhappy with this overly instructive technique, it really worked. The girl instructed him to head to the second floor upon his arrival, and it was from there he observed them chatting. The algorithm told him he met the dress code criteria. The system was right to advise him to wear a suit, even if the letter inviting him to the interview advised him to dress casually. This huge group rules all aspects of Connors. It makes logical that their selecting procedure is so challenging. He then heads to the personality test room, as he had anticipated, full of people and somewhat competitive. Everybody present is somewhat insecure and nervous about it. Others who bought the incorrect books, and others who studied properly and knew what to respond for every question, had rather different backgrounds. A lady walks in at that point and calls everyone. Declaring herself as Kim Jong-mi, she says she has been employed there since 2017. Saying he's coming to assist with the personality test, the man next to her introduces himself as Kang Min-yul. He asks whether anyone had trouble reaching this spot, since some individuals live locally and some far away. Someone calls out their hand right away. Claiming to have come from a far-off city, they inquire about their transportation expenses reimbursement policy. Tae-sol gets a note right away stating the girl failed the test since he finds it absurd to ask anything like that. Man, this is too realistic. The worst thing is that it operates in the actual world likewise. The people in front answer that although they won't this year, they will give it thought for next year. They already note her name down and ask whether anyone else would want to ask questions. Our protagonist understands that nothing should be asked there, as they would evaluate anything you say. The man then informs everyone they can start penning their responses and advises they could stop there. Knowing it from beginning to end, our lad is reading and is all eager. He basically only needed to write and would have everything perfect at the speed he was using. Alternatively, he should perhaps get some mistakes. There were 200 questions with 30 minutes allotted. Just 1 minute remaining to turn in, Tae-seok declared he wouldn't hold back. Had he acquired this skill, it was supposed to be put to use. From beginning to end, he was going to have everything perfect. The action moves to someone calling his name. Someone wonders in a restaurant why he missed work yesterday. Uncle Sung wants to know what he's up to and whether he happened to meet a girlfriend. Our lad poses as though he does truly have a girlfriend. He doesn't want to reveal that he visited another company for an interview. Hence the manager smiles and says, "Those who work hard truly ought to have some fun." He need not worry. They would speak with the manager so that it would not affect him. Tae-seok believes he could keep working there, if only his back wasn't problematic. But at that instant he notices something. There shows the window displaying his passing the personality test. Man, if the man rises up only to pass the first stage, getting a job in Korea must be quite difficult. But it tells him he will have to get ready for the interview. Of course, its objective also shows. Man, it was still an internet interview, not even a face-to-face one. Given the tense nature of the situation, he was going to have to inform his manager what transpired today. Talking to the director will not be easy at all, hence our lad is in shock. The prize was unknown, and should he fail, he would be transported to another building site. The phone of the friend in front of him rings at that instant. Tae-seok is asked by the director whether he is with him and advised to forward him. The man replies, okay, he will let him know. Getting up, our lad claims he has to speak with the manager. The man is surprised he has the bravery. Tae-seok answers at the person paying him so he cannot dodge the guy. He was driven since the system indicated he had to go through a difficult event and he was pursuing it. The scene turns to him walking into the office. The man claims he has been thinking a lot about his circumstances, but is just staring at him silently. He should return to be a carpenter beginning tomorrow. The employer argues he's too young to be merely working as a painter and shouldn't be doing that, even if Tae-seok claims he doesn't think it's right to do all of a sudden. Our lad attempts to convey that for now he is sufficient in working as a painter. The manager claims he can locate another painter fast, but the only carpenter he knows is standing just in front of him. Tae-seok wanted to stop hearing that, but what was he supposed to say? Still, the small task starts. He should exhibit empathy, calm himself, and pay attention to the director's narrative till very last. Our lad continued to gaze. He clearly had little desire in doing such, but he asks the manager to cool off and properly explain the circumstances. According to the man, the second story lacks a carpenter, thus they won't be able to complete with the contract on time. Should that occur, he will lose millions just over a few days and wonders whether the lad truly won't be of assistance. Taesok is aware that he is the only one standing to lose during this bargaining. He was forced, nevertheless, to somehow acquiesce. The man claims he is begging and that he only needs few days or weeks. Our lad says at most for 1 week. The boss's expression transforms right away and says he knew he could rely on him. He came just close to being sent to another building site. That's so since he seems really anxious lately and wasn't enjoying his employment there. Still, he truly saved the lad this time as he is happy he did not fire him. He claims he just needed to give a quick call. Saying everything will be settled in at most a week, he phones the manager. Our lad is just off to the side listening. Later on, when he is working, the manager phones him and orders him to down from the ladder. He orders him to meet an L Sunday group manager. Declaring it a delight to meet the man, he comes down and introduces himself. Saying his name is Choi Kadong, the man compliments him for his diligence. He was somewhat relieved, since he believed the project would not be finished on schedule. Although our lad believes his back has been hurting more than usual this week, he thinks it's fantastic to be able to help. The man invites Taesok also and advises they celebrate by drinking. Our lad says he has a doctor's appointment tonight, so he apologies though. The scene shifts to every hospital employee startled. Saying Taesok urged him not to return to that work, the doctor is chastising him. Given his great pain, our lad requests him to go easy on him. He is advised to visit the second level in order to receive some physical therapy by the doctor. Our lad simply needed to hang on a bit more. He knew the day of the interview was approaching. The scene then turns to him in a suit identifying himself as Kim Taesok. Then he surprises everyone. Right in front of him is the man he turned away from going out for a drink yesterday. He tells him to sit down since it appears like this is the first time they are meeting. He was going to call on Taesok, but just as he was ready to reply, someone indicated they wanted to comment on something first. The interview was about to commence. They requested a man called Kang Min-woo to get up. Then he asked what the man thought about the fact he was sporting white socks and black pants. Min-woo said he did in fact make a mistake with the combo. Man, is the man going to lose his job over white socks? He will go naked next time. Our lad knew this was the pressure zone the system had alerted him about. Koda Kadong claims he wants to know why he dressed like that, even though he seems to know about manners. That room displayed a real nature and was intended for that. Not sure why he wasn't replying, the boss questioned him. Choi Kadong inquired as to whether he knew how he felt or whether he could manage his emotions. Min-woo stayed quiet, reminding himself he was being tested on endurance, and all he had to do was not react. Choi Kadong was, meantime, assessing something else. He had already observed that the man lacked even basic communication under pressure, and was prone to stress. He also appeared not able to react in several contexts. Telling the lad to sit down, he placed many X next to his name. Then he called on a girl called Choi Yoon Hee. He questioned her lack of expertise and her never having even had a part-time job. She answered, embarrassed, that she was concentrating on her academics. The man answered that although she seemed to be simply good in studies, that is not exactly what they are seeking for. He inquired if she would treat consumers like that and advised her to speak up correctly. Man, using 3 words, the girl was destroyed. Not even would I hire her. Another CEO pointed out that Choi Kadong had rearranged the questions for another motive. He called his name and gave the lad time to be ready for the pressure of the interview. Motivated, he got up with that slice system at hand, all brilliant and shiny, believing that if he had come this far, he would not be eliminated for nothing. Choi Kadong inquired of him which institution he attended. He said he obtained his diploma using the credit system. This is a system whereby you can accumulate credits in several categories and subsequently trade them for almost a diploma. When the man queries whether he actually never attended university, our lad says precisely that. The man probes what he exactly means. Did he know anything else? Still, the cheeky man was not going to give up. He had to present his life honestly. In some sense, one aimed to affect those individuals' hearts. He says then that he had to make money. The man claims it's the same in the company and queries whether he truly left university in order to get money. Taesok says that although he doesn't regret it, yeah, he did. During the day, he worked on building sites. At night, he studied to acquire his diploma with credit. He had never ignored his life. Though he hadn't attended university like the others, he learned as much as he could and was certified as a computer technician, sometimes known as the It King. He claims he worked tirelessly to obtain the diploma through the system while still making daily income. Impressed, the manager smiles slightly and says he understands. He looks at the other man, who murmurs about his interpretation. Then he looks to Tasik and asks how far he believes the Elson group could go. Though he had already considered it, this was theoretically a difficult question. He is precisely motivated to work for a large corporation. All he wants is not having to rely on his body to get money anymore, to help his mother pay her hospital expenses and free himself from constant stress. He would do all to reach there. He therefore states he would do everything required as long as it is permitted by society norms and does not violate the law. Why, the guy wonders, is he so preoccupied with rules and social conventions? The astute man knows the correct response is to suggest it would damage the company's reputation. He backs the group's public credibility and openness. Our lad is aware he is not totally honest. Still, persuasion of such bastards is crucial. This interview serves simply for this one goal. Asking whether he has a girlfriend, the man adds they can now address the next subject. Every uncomfortable. He responds no, and the man probes more. This says he doesn't know any girls permanently alone. He's looking to meet someone, hence if he knew of any decent prospects they could introduce him. Laughing, the guys declare the lad a clown. Ma'am, I had almost overlooked the other two suckers on the side. The man says everyone can go and beams. The scene opens back on the building site. The supervisor demands Taziok. Our lad knows him and greets the team leader, who thanks him and remarks it's good to see him back there. While he was away, our lad wonders whether everything was fine. According to the man, everything went wrong right away he departed. Our boy already pictures what happened. Chiolson had to have produced some accident as usual. At least he usually shows up for work, so he will ultimately acquire skill. Saying they had a company dinner, the man orders everyone to leave. Our lad adds that team boss Kim Dong asked him to a supper as well. The man becomes interested about the reason the team leader invited him. He was about to claim the boss cursed, and they had worked together for a week. Still, a small window started to show up. He should heed to the guys and go to that company dinner. There was no penalty, but the reward was uncertain. He seemed perplexed. It was the first time a mission free of consequence was undertaken. Having an idea, he asked the manager what was being offered today. Obviously, the man remarked, it was grandma's soup. Then Taziok says he will accompany the other squad leader as the man is paying for meat for everyone. The man celebrates, declaring that eating meat is unquestionably better than that tiny soup. That's good, according to the supervisor. They will modify the agenda and head to have some meat. That turns the scene to everyone toasting. And the manager adds that lately, things have been really annoying. Although his brother has been a gas engineer for approximately 20 years, his pay is less than $4,000. He neglected studying for this reason as well. Those papers are useless in all their entirety. The slubby man orders him to quit lying. He understands he wanted to have fun with the females instead of studying. Taziok is all dumb, just giggling, stating everyone seems drunk. Still, at last, they were not lying about anything. Treating the workers on this kind of building site is never simple. The evening goes with it as well. One full week flies by. The man asks our lad why he missed another interview. He is on his way to one. Embarrassed, he claims he told them about it. The manager advises he should visit since he lacks the will to work. Still, our lad simply apologizes and ends the call. The woman urges the boy who passed the initial interview to proceed to the discussion room at that very time. There would be 10 persons in the group, hence he would have to do as advised by the moderator. Oh wow, this is strife. There they would go over why Korea invests so much in education when compared to other nations. With everyone there right now, the man advises that anyone wishing to make a point raise their hand. Having real-life experience, our lad believes he has the advantage. He appreciates the leader for so much of instruction. The man claims that the interview argument is about to start. Man, this first work is quite demanding. Real pressure is what exists here. Then number 2 is called Try to Guess Whose Turn It Is. Actually, I'm not sure since lately they called Park In-soo, a guy claiming he understands Korea spends a lot on human resources. But this is why he rose to be among the top 10 international powers. They must keep developing skill even if it is costly. Artesia considered this man to be quite outstanding. So dumb he was. The issue was on the excessively high cost and their possible solution. He responded with something irrelevant though, not sure what he was talking about. Beside him, another female introduces herself as Choi Yoon-hee. She added that since the nation has too few people, her family paid 300 million won to send her to university. More help was needed so people might start families. Our lad is simply seeing. The interviewer agrees and notes that his family is getting smaller. The expenses are larger as the single person now drives the concentration of them. Perhaps the best strategy is to inspire others. Taesuk is aware that's a sensible fix, but because they are not a public institution, why would a firm give that any thought? Then he says he's Taesuk, number 2, and wants to offer another viewpoint. There goes the sly one, pilfers the concepts of the system, huh? Everybody is closely observing. He says that pricey universities sometimes fail to provide the necessary employment for individuals. They should design a system akin to Germany's, whereby every sphere of education is appreciated. Unlike here, where just technology is searched for, that would mean they wouldn't rely so much on foreign workers for hand labor. The people seem taken aback by his reaching of this conclusion, and a guy wearing spectacles says he has questions. Was number 2 disparaging of Korea? Our youngster seems a little perplexed. Given that is not what he said, he did not believe someone would ask something so hostile. These, he maintains, are merely hypotheses on how to make the national system better rather than an attack on the present one. The speaker answers nonetheless that Korea boasts outstanding students who achieve even abroad. How therefore could they not be better than Germany? The examiner requests the name of number 10. Saying his name is, he says, the man compliments him and orders him out of the room. The poor guy finds himself perplexed. The interviewer then claims he does not suit the company's ideal. Oh, that test tested harmony and who could work with others. Sukum, however, had a negative attitude akin to someone who enjoys demeaning people in order to achieve. Given what the business was seeking, he was the worst applicant. With that, the fool left and he earned it. Though in practice, it's never like that, right? The man then comments they will now discuss national pension reform. And with that, time went by while they covered several subjects. They hadn't come to any decision in 25 minutes, and it appeared as though a debate was still in progress. Why the man stopped the subject was the mystery the protagonist couldn't grasp, and from his attitude, he knew the man appeared irritated. He thus called everyone to simplify matters and advised them to come to a decision. He advised everyone to voice their thoughts once more before voting could take place. Given he appeared to have taken ownership for, the interviewer showed attention. He sought for a sly individual like this in the business. He then complimented everyone for their excellent job and announced they could all head home. Said to have passed thus far is this lad, Kim Tasiak. Outside, though, our lad heard someone calling it unfair. That man from past was screaming at the interviewer from outside the room. Our lad never thought there would be anyone who would reject the outcome in such manner. When he looked once again, though, the person was screaming and the interviewer was green. Uncertain, he began to question what was happening. Then he caught something odd in that room. Everybody appeared to have a different hue. And it was during that experience that he arrived to 2 conclusions. Blinking 3 times in a succession helps him to activate his unemployed capacity. People are then viewed in several hues. Still, the impoverished man is not sure what that means. Then there he is back at the building site. He got yet another note. They wished him well and set tomorrow for the last interview. Man, even if I want this child to get the job, this lad is rejoicing, and after 5 or 6 chapters, he was really delighted. He merely had to pass this to land his goal. Talking with Uncle Sung a little later, he was advised to apply extra paint before beginning to paint to hasten the task. Dumping the roller in the bucket, the chumpy man left rattling everything all around. That wasn't going to finish nicely, clearly, and our lad's whole face was ready to be painted white. The friend then simply apologized. But man, our lad claimed it was fine, even though he had turned into a huge ice cream cone. He was not going to battle against a man who had obviously made an accidental mistake. The man claimed he was sorry since he knew he was helping, and our lad said once more it was all right. All he was going to do was shower. The leader was surprised to see him painted at that point. Our lad reported that kind of stuff occurs. He was only going to quickly shower. The manager indicated his residence was far, hence he could use the downstairs bathroom if he so wished. Our lad wondered whether everyone would not be enraged with him for that. He responded no, so he thanked him and headed out, feeling all awkward already down the stairs. But what is his actionable response? He needs to get shower. This business is really decent, in fact. Look at that wonderful shower. Man, I realized it was only a shower. But he came into an elderly man in the bathroom, who inquired what he was doing there, and our lad mentioned working on the building site. The man remarked that he saw when he was slapped with paint and said that it's a difficult work. Our lad wonders whether the elderly man is the owner there and says it's good. The individual claims he more resembles a shareholder than a true owner, hence he cannot properly call himself such. Impressed, our lad asks whether he earns well there and says it sounds like something rather decent. The man answers, sure, he makes enough. but nothing to be jealous of. According to our lad, the elderly man seems to be hardworking and appreciates him as well. The old man plunges into the sea out of nowhere, and our lad wonders why he doesn't get backed up had he passed out. Asking the elderly guy what occurred, he calls out to the elderly man, wonders whether he was worried that the man had passed away as soon as he jumped in to assist him. Confused, our lad probes what it was all about, and the elderly man answers he has superstition. He had to sink into that location to clear all of his bodily perspiration. Our lad claims he understands, albeit still somewhat perplexed by this madness. But the elderly man looks driven and rather robust for his age, to which the elderly man says he constantly strives to remain active by working out. Our lad notes he has to return to work but says he enjoys that. Telling the elderly man to keep looking after his health, he wishes him well. The elderly man thanks him and sends his best wishes also. Not too long later, he is leaving. And from behind where he came from, a man walks into the room. Right, that man runs the business as president? Then the other man wonders whether he is departing since there are 40 minutes remaining till the last ceremony. President Kim Chang-mo developed superstitious habits. He had to wash in every one of the just-built houses. Otherwise, within a year, there would be an accident at them. He pauses to wonder whether this year would proceed as expected. Our lad is returning home tired in meantime. When a window says he only has to show up to pass the test, that response, though, seemed oddly simple, and he began to suspect something. Still, the system advised him he had to rely on it. Still, our lad decided to get ready despite what the system said. That evening, he committed all he had seen and experienced at the Elson firm to memory. And the executive interview was the next day. Arriving with a focused stare, he identified himself as Taziok from the system. Telling him to sit down, the man stated, "This is him." Our lad was sure as the system advised him not to worry. He couldn't let his guard down, however, even so, he thus blinked 3 times to turn on the unemployed eye. And oddly, this time the guys ranged in color from purple to dark blue. Starting to peruse the resume, the man claims he is searching for any employment. It appears, though, he skipped college. Turning to the man next to him, he remarks the lad lacks education, who replies that he seems still able to hunt for a job. The man says it has to be among those you essentially acquire from the government. Looking at the man next to him, another supervisor orders to bring his evaluation document. He is surprised, though, to find he scored highest in every interview stage. Not even the top university's graduates were vying with the lad. The man standing next to him claims that the code name for the child is SS-et. That was a means of expressing his relative or descendant status from the president. Alternatively, someone who was merely visiting due of some personal tie. Shaking, the man probes what kind of employment this individual is seeking. He says that although an office job would be great, he will try his best whatever he receives. "All right then, you may go," the man says. Startled, our lad questions whether he heard that right. The boys answer yes and thank you for your diligence. They start wondering as he goes whether he is related to the president or the CEO of the business. Perhaps this whole idea about his coming from a low-income background was simply to have that narrative of someone starting from nothing. Luckily, the interview team assured him they would let him pass by, knowing the specifics and scoring him highest. Otherwise, they virtually committed a major error. The scene shifts to a man inquiring of his kid about his interview performance. He smacks the table and claims he still made a dishonor to the family even knowing all the questions. The lad closes his fists and apologizes. He simply wanted his father to grant him still another opportunity. The father answers that he understands but that he should do it right this time. The poor lad is simply shaking his hands. When the father probes to see if he understands, he responds, yes. Returning to the building site, our lad is fixated on his phone. He was feeling kind of empty since it had been too easy, even if he had passed. The HR group has messaged him that he would have to visit several hospitals for a physical checkup. Now he's concerned, right? Without spines. Already beginning to feel nervous about his back, perhaps keeping him from landing the job, The scenario moves thereafter to the hospital. He walks in the room requesting permission. The doctor knows Taziuk and queries whether his back is aching once more. That isn't the reason now, he explains. The dude then probes on what it's about. He says he passed the interview with a large corporation. The man cheers him, stating at last the youngster will once more be human. Taziuk seems depressed though, and he probes to find out why. Totally tired out, our lad insists it's nothing. He simply couldn't do it, even though he understood what he needed to ask that individual for. He thus merely requests some painkillers as usual, and the doctor thinks that's okay. Clearly though, the lad is not at all happy. The typically confident lad appears a little depressed today, the doctor notes right away. Perhaps he was experiencing more than normal. The doctor remembers fast, though, that he mentioned passing the large firm interview and is not a fool. After anything like this, at a place like that, the physical exam remains. The lad seemed thus reluctant to request something like that, since he might lose his license should he be discovered lying about his medical condition. Ultimately, he was only like his father, just concerned about people. The receptionist hands him the medication on his way out. He thanks her. She adds, though, the doctor sent something else. On there is a tiny CD, and he wonders why that is there. The doctor yells from far off, praising him on his interview performance as he's departing. Then notes he will have to treat them to several dinners once he begins working. Embarrassed, our son says he understands. That CD apparently possessed everything required to pass the physical exam. And the next morning, what he had been waiting for at last materialized. At last he passed and started working for someone. To get level 1, all of this essentially is, man, Namagame is really beginning. But if it's regarding a game, the small window flashes. Opening the employee store, he had 5 points to spend. That would enable him to address many challenges in life. And with quests, you could earn points to get unique objects. The system asks whether he would like to look at the store or not. Obviously, our lad responds in yes. And a massive panel shows up. One of the sobriety pills rapidly eliminates all alcohol from your body. Another one allowing a minute of viewing through barriers. Man, that's dangerous. Not in line with the perverts. The small treat that helps you avoid 6 hours of hangover. And the scent that appeals to the other sex twice as powerfully. This system surely knows how to play the game. Our lad asks whether this is real or magical. The machine probes whether he would wish to lose his memories. Our lad responds nay as well. With that, it indicates it exists to enable him succeed, therefore he cannot refuse it. Our lad says he thanks it for the help. He understands. Though he thought the system was sassier than he had anticipated, he had to reassure it and mention he landed a better job. He would thus get 6 points, and should he fail, the subquests would be sealed. Though our lad seemed not overly concerned, stating he would tell her even if he wasn't asked to, he disliked the name of the assignment. He then approaches the door knocking. Thank heaven she is still alive. I believe she had passed death. Oh, divine. He asks her how she's doing already in the room, and she reports she's gradually improving. Then he tells her he was approved into the Elson group. She welcomes him on the excellent work and knows the company. He thanks her and says she should recover quickly so they may head home. His mother then presents an apple brought in by her aunt early in the morning. But he asks what's so hilarious since he notes she's laughing. She claims to be content since her kid worked hard and get into a prestigious company. Understanding and heading to cut the apple, he grabs some knives. The goal is thus finished, and he gains those 6 points. He's perplexed, though, for a time. Mother's first love shows up as a submission. That Dr. Hanwell worries about his mother. Thus, you should ask him to leave the hospital. He finds this confusing. Furthermore, close buddy of his father was that man. He had little about 35 minutes to finish, though. Our lad knew that his father and Hanwell had been lifelong friends. He recalled seeing this man every time he returned home. He would also struggle with his father to look after his health even in his later years. Though this seems strange, he is aware that man is unmarried. Still, the mission states that his mother is his first love. Thus, that is the deal. Was this indeed accurate? He wanted to know. The system claims to be unable of lying, and our lad questions why he is being sent this task then. It states that this is to enable his success. He is perplexed now and wants to know who is behind this. The system answers, though, that it is not permitted to disclose that, and our lad is there looking like a moron. He was clueless about the goal of this object. When he returns to the room, his mother probes why he took so long. He says he just had to answer a phone. She advises him to relax and to go if he is busy. That's not it, he adds, then asks whether she recalls an uncle called Hanwoo. She then mentions his name. Our boy apparently rules over facial expressions. Her phrasing of the name of that individual Hanwoo caught his attention as odd. His father departed saying he had to make a call as he already died. He hurried outside and grabbed his phone, clearly to call Uncle Hanwoo, who responded inquiring what was going on and whether anything happened. Our lad only wanted to find out whether he still loved his mother. All perplexed, the man questioned what occurred and if she said anything. Wanting to find out whether she was okay and whether anything happened in the hospital, he got up fast. Our lad told him to come fast. It was room 403. He then merely hung up. Although the system claimed he made a wise decision, he remained furious with this creature for failing to expose its identity. The system stopped responding, but 15 minutes later, Hanwoo was hurrying into the hospital. He watched him sprinting frantically along the hall. Hanwoo has seen her only once since his father passed away. The mission was finished, and he gathered every point. Still, the rather insane lad came to a conclusion after coolly considering it. These actions of the system obviously went beyond his future, and with it, he got an idea. He inquired about any relationship the system had to his father. The messages on that pane seemed to have too much feeling to fit one person. Ultimately, though, everything was always meant to serve him. The response was clearly that it was not answerable. When the system responded hardly at all, he felt a little uncomfortable. He harbored questions. Still, he would learn more about this little by bit. There was, after all, something else to concentrate on for now. What was happening between Hanwoo and his mother? He walked to have a look through the window, and they were composed in their speech. He was not sure what the talk covered. Still, it had been some time since he had seen his mother and Hanwoo grinning like that. The system said it was a wise decision. This structure looks to be anti-widows. A little time passed. When Hanwoo emerged to see whether the lad was listening outside, he answered no. He apologized for running in. Our lad says it was all right. He then remarked he could call them for anything, and he was gone. But the lad cried out to Hanwoo and questioned whether he still loved his mother. Suddenly, the thing becomes a romance, and the doctor finds herself lost in contemplation. Looking somewhat ashamed, he admitted he knew not much about that. Our lad objected to that response, though. As he would be heading to the company's training center, he asked Hanwoo whether he may spend 3 days with her. Given Hanwoo had already provided money and assisted with the physical exam, he understood it was asking a lot. Still, Hanwoo merely mentioned his name. Our lad, however, said he was the only person he could rely on to be at her side at this time and refused to allow him say anything. Since it was not a simple choice to make, the man claimed he would go home to reflect. Back at the flat, the relentless schedule at the building site started once more. Beginning tomorrow, the leader informed the group they will start working in another location. But someone yelled out to the leader at that very instant. Tae-sok remarked he had something to say. The man inquired as to whether he would not be taking some more days off once more. That wasn't the case this time, our lad said. The man wondered what it was then, as he had lately missed rather a lot. Tae-sok also disclosed at that point that he held an office job. The man remarked he hoped he wasn't leaving this position merely to get paid pennies somewhere, since here they pay fairly. Our lad just said he had been accepted into the Elson group and apologized for not mentioning anything earlier. The boss questioned what this Elson company was about, his eyes only flickering. Our lad recently informed us regretfully he wouldn't be returning tomorrow. The manager remarked that was difficult to believe since he came from a decent university. Our lad added he couldn't believe it either, but it worked out somehow. He was there to inform him thus as well. The manager yelled, stating he worked hard to instruct him, but ultimately he did this. Our lad said he wasn't sure what more he could say and apologized, and everyone went silent. Then Cholson inquired as to whether they would be having one last dinner given the boy was heading off. The manager seemed to dislike hearing that, so he inquired why he was discussing a farewell party when the lad was leaving the business in such manner. One of them, though, who was really eager, claimed to have even phoned his wife. Man, the lad had lately declared they should go get some drinks and soup. The supervisor felt dissatisfied about it. The other man countered that this was common for those living paycheck to payback to find themselves doing this. At least Tae-seok intended to leave the company, coming to let others know. Then the manager mentioned he was in desire some pig bone soup. Our lad was perplexed, so the man said they would have that company supper since everyone desired it. Embarrassed, our lad remarked it wasn't necessary. The man countered that he was eager to curse him out all night, not doing it because he liked him. Our lad understood, though, that ultimately the leader cared about him even if he was furious. The manager urged him to take it seriously at the meal. It was not easier just because it was an office job. Our lad claimed he was driven and would make as much effort as he could. The leader claimed it was more about everyone there had studied at top colleges than about that. Our lad claimed he knew, but even so, he would remain concentrated and perform his best. The man replied, "That was good, but he may come back any time should things go south." Though he was busy, he promised the lad to land a new job. Grinning, our lad said thanks to him. The man beside him even cleared his throat and remarked that the youngster would have had something better if he had told them earlier. Then he set an envelope on the table. Uncertain, Tasu questioned what that was. The man basically advised him to grab it. He had to learn to welcome gifts from elderly folks. Though little, it was enough to at least purchase a pair of shoes. These elderly men are incredibly friendly folks. Our lad thanked them but remarked he wasn't really sure he was fine. Charleston snatched it at that point and claimed the youngster would have it since he didn't want it. The man asked what he was thinking, and Charleston responded he also wanted new shoes. The man advised Taeseok to accept it fast, since he claimed he had no occasion calling for elegant shoes and would get rather furious. Although our lad understood it was a small gesture, he could feel their love for him. He bid farewell to his colleagues at that company that day and later joined the Elson group. The lad arrived with a briefcase, assuming that in this massive construction people are all kind. Indeed, it's the training camp. He revealed his name and personally greeted the man. The man chose to investigate his identity. Declaring he was number 1, he instructed him to enter fast. But the other man advised him to wait and inquire whether he was born in 1992 as he was about to go. Our lad rejected it. When the man asked whether it was 1994, he replied yes. The man next advised him to board bus number 3. Our lad claimed to have understood. He reasoned that there had been this ambiguity with the birth dates, as he knew there was most likely someone exactly like him. He then settled on his tiny seat and declared they would be traveling to the Elson training camp. Now our lad was a new hire, all blushing. Still, something in his pocket felt vibratory. It was Hanwoo, advising him to work hard and to relax about his mother. Reading that gave our lad relief. Thank you, he promised to come back safely. Ahead in the seats, a man got up. Declaring himself Kim Min-sam, he stated he would be driving bus number 3 today. Everyone yelled, imploring him to look after them. The man added that nobody's position there had been decided yet as they were heading to the 4-week training. Man, 4 weeks merely for corporate training? That is insane. Still, the people appeared to be all perplexed. The man stated he must have made a mistake and inquired who had already decided on their career. None of anyone raised their hand either. At Elson, the man added, new employee training was really crucial. After their evaluation and observation, they would be assigned a job fit for them. Having followed the same road they were set to take, he also joined the company. He felt comfortable and could perform well in the sales division. Hence, it was assigned to him. One of the lads wanted to know what would happen should they land a job they dislike. In such situation, the man added, they only had to remain in the top 10% of the training since they could choose exactly where they would go, but the remaining 90% had no choice. Perhaps their dream wouldn't be granted even if they declared they wished to work in another division. But they had a procedure whereby you could ask for another one should, after a year, you still feel you weren't suited for that post. He did, however, not particularly advise it. The team you worked with the first year may see you negatively. Our lad struggled and came to understand the gravity of capitalism there, already knowing how serious entering this company was, and seeing negatively of others was the most risky thing. He wanted no one to learn his back needed surgery. He would have to start from nothing once he lost his job due to that. He was therefore going to keep strong. The buses were towards Soka, the city. To our lad, everything seemed fresh and foreign. Still, he was thrilled since the system was supporting him back up. They so arrived at what appeared to be the military base of the corporation. Getting out, Min-sung instructed everyone to follow him. He conveyed the word that they would get anything more they needed, some gym gear and personal belongings. Everyone started registering now. Our lad was informed by the worker that he will be on 3rd floor room B-13. Of course, gender segregated the rooms. They wouldn't set everyone in the same room. Their motivations were not that kind. They were there to work. Then our lad headed to the small apartment where he would sleep. When he walked into the room, he discovered it empty. At least though it was just for 2 persons. He snatched the man's offered workout attire fast. Another guy walked into the room as he was getting ready. Our lad answered yes when he asked whether this was B-13. The man stated it was really small. Our lad then introduced himself as Taeseok. Saying it was good to meet him, the man noted his name was Min Yong. Our lad queried the man's age since he seemed to be a bit older. The man claimed he was 29. My friend, poor man, life indeed did a lot on him. Then our lad mentioned he was 25, and as the man was older, he volunteered to occupy the worst bunk. Our boy praised the man because he gave him a thumbs up and said the lad was really polite. That's when the man remarked he just learned. 3 years ago, at 25, he should have finished from high school. Embarrassed, our lad explained he obtained his diploma from the government. That marked a call to everyone to assemble before the main building. The man in front of our lad moaned and remarked it seemed like they were returning from the army. Our lad agreed and mentioned they needed to be going quickly to avoid late arrival. That meant that the auditorium housed over 260 fresh hires. The man then mentioned that something would be said to them by the head of the training camp. That's when a man stepped on stage, introduced himself, grabbed the microphone, and waved a tiny hello to every person who answered with a hello back. But this person immediately yelled, asking where everyone's voice was. Hence, he must see too many inspirational films. Man thought I was in one of those seminars with course sales, and everyone yelling together. Introducing himself as Yoon Sun-wook, the coach said he oversaw the electronics division until last year. But he was in charge of teaching every fresh hire this year. Though it had not always been that way, they were among the top 5 firms in Korea. The man related a depressing tale of how they visited Japan in 1960 in order to import technology. Telling them to raise their hands, he asked whether anyone knew when the first refrigerator in Korea was built. Someone mentioned right away that it was produced at Elsa. The speaker agreed and noted that developing the first one took 4 years. Making such thing happen required a lot of trial and error. It was quite costly at the time, but today every house has one. Our lad believed the speaker was speaking on the present, past, and future of the organization. All of it was meant to help them come to see they belonged to a single unit now, and the man yelled that they would be at the training camp going forward. Elsa staff included all of them. A bit later, Minsu declared they would have to work till 10 o'clock, but he added they would need a leader to coordinate things and inquired as to anyone willing to help. One man held out his hand. Surely, right? Our clever lad with his small system is here. I would too raise my hand. He turned to check to the side. And there was rivalry. In the realm of motivating speakers, did you believe it was simple to be a leader? Even some of these people are observing Tiago Finch. Our lad also observed that roughly 6 others were vying for it. But at that, he spotted something. His apartment mate also raised his hand. The scene moves back to our lad's dorm. He's there by himself, simultaneously bored, fatigued, and anxious. This is so because his roommate rose to leadership. Everyone raising their hands declared him as Team B's new leader. He might decide to resign. His stay in that role was 1 week. People might naturally vote to remove him from the post at that time as well. Everyone yelled out that they understood, and the man advised them to shout Elsa rather than understand. Man, these slaves of business were indoctrination targets. Our lad walked out of the room, bored to death. Outside, everyone was chatting extensively, although working hard. He reasoned that this would be a good moment to unwind and shower. The public laundry room, public restroom, public sink, and public mirror presented a challenge. TVs abound, and he seldom had any privacy. Man, you own a room. You seem worn out. Go back to dummy. He supposedly visited the dungeon. Declared he was going to do it. He rested his hand on the doorknob. That was not anything. He was already devoid of shirts. He has worked on building sites always. He slept on a stack of wood sometimes as he couldn't even take a shower. And it was black instant noodles on the floor when they ran out of money for food. To him, that corporate location was nothing. It was smaller than he had anticipated. He was aware, too, that those who had simply studied and never worked for a corporation would find it difficult to handle a setting rife with cliques. Clearly, the seniors would be hanging about noting everything. These guys showering and that guy carrying a notebook in hand is a little odd. Not sure, buddy. Our lad was rather busy, obviously working hard, back in the room. Of course, right, folks. He was studying. Our lad is a hard worker. Glancing at the clock, he noted it was 9:30. His roommate entered at that point to find out whether the man had completed his work. He answered no, quite honestly, and inquired about his questionnaire completion. The man answered yes, and today his goal was, our lad asked whether he could help and thanked him. The man said no need and claimed he could relax because he assumed leadership. That was good then, according our lad, and bid farewell. Apparently that was all. I had expected this conversation would produce something amazing, and someone opened the door at 1 a.m, waking our lad. When our lad inquired whether the man had finished, he responded no. He then inquired to everyone about finishing the questionnaire. In such situation, everyone must have finished, the person added. But Taziok, the result of capitalism, already had a sense. That man was moving much too slowly. Min Yong then raced through the door shouting the man. He mentioned he had till 10 p.m. to complete the questionnaire, so why hadn't it yet been delivered? The man stated it was challenging since everyone had already turned in for sleep and he would gather them tomorrow. He was naturally reprimanded for failing on the first day. All ashamed, the first training victim came back to apologies. The man advised him to go to sleep since they would see each other at 7 a.m. He had been too harsh. He closed the door with that, and our lad merely watched feeling like an idiot. The man turned down 2 offers of assistance from Taziok already present. He so decided not to offer once again, since the guy might feel degraded. He questioned what it was when someone yelled out to him as he was walking down the corridor the following morning. It was the head who wanted to know his roommate's whereabouts. Our lad claimed he woke up not seeing him and had no idea. The leader advised him to track him and notify him. Our lad replied, "Okay," and asked for the number. Now, though, he had no idea where that strange man was and had not even received his number. He could already see the man not doing well in this venue. He heard a shout in the corridor at that instant and hurried to see what it was, curious as usual. It seemed to come from room B-19, he noticed. The guys argued he shouldn't have offered to be the leader if he was going to handle issues like that, and that it was absurd to submit the questionnaire at 6.3, and ask for it to be done by 7. Apologizing, Minion said he would be more cautious and left all depressed, declaring he wouldn't be able to live this. The man with the blue towel claimed he nearly felt guilty for him. The other man claimed he deserved it. Although the group leader gets more stars, he did not deserve it as he was performing a terrible job, and he fled, claiming he had nothing against the man. Rather, he was negligent for his work. Our lad was not naive and understood that the business was probably seeking someone who could keep strong relationships. The system sound then started, though. Reading the whole training camp book was the aim. That would so make him exactly ready for the 4 weeks of training ahead. He also got another task. He was to lead the squads. Minion was showcasing the motivating speaker's goals. At this point, he saw his miserable roommate once more searching for the bedding. He yelled out to Minion, asking what it was. Our lad told him Senior Min-sung was phoning from the 2nd floor. He glanced at the clock and realized he had just 15 minutes for the meeting. He hadn't finished the task yet. Our lad was ready to help, but the man immediately bolted off, claiming it was okay and he could do it. Starting to knock on everyone's doors, he was like a desperate guy. But now our lad was growing enraged, as it seemed as though this man was acting only to keep all the stars. On the other hand, he had never asked the man to present any leader stars. Thus, why was he acting this way? Since this man was acting selfishly, he could not afford to compromise his own integrity. Then he said he had told Min-sung all he had asked for and phoned him. The man appreciatively praised his diligence. They would be waiting for Minion, hence he advised him to show up for the meeting. Time was running out, though. At 730, the man had not shown up. Our lad was there thinking the man had truly messed up. He ought to have realized that selfishness is not the answer if something goes wrong. Minion hurried in at that point, late apology in tow. Min-sung asked simply where the list was. Apologizing, Minion said people were becoming furious since it was so last minute and they were not participating. The man yelled, demanding how it could be that nobody wanted to work with him. It was his responsibility as the leader to have resolved issue and avoid here to tell tales. Devastated, the poor man was advised to hurry up or he would miss breakfast. The lad just took it. Our lad came to see he ought to have skipped breakfast to sort this issue. However, he was walking away. But right now, he was starting to get really irate. He is observing our protagonist, considering, "You screwed up." Our lad had just finished reading the whole handbook at that point. He warned the leader he shouldn't have breakfast, and he responded regretfully, unable today. When our lad inquired whether it would take that long, the man regretfully answered yes. Our lad did naturally give assistance. The man has broken back, his mother's in the hospital. He is only aiming to get very rich. That allowed the man to go over his method for organizing everything. Then he got up, declaring he was going to pick up the remaining nonsense sheets. But our lad advised them to simply check the phone numbers and call them as they were confirming. With that, the first visitor was knocking on the door already. She stated she was late. Our boy said it was acceptable. Our lad worked really effectively. They then at last completed the 3-team registration. Min-sung stated it was good even though he felt sorry for skipping breakfast for our lad. He even presented the one energy bar he owned. Oh my, this child is truly aspiring to be Elon Musk's successor. The father told him he could eat it, but our lad claimed he had several of those in his room. Min-sung ate it, then remarked that occasionally life at the workplace is like this. There are always people like that, no matter how much he yells during a process. Still, it was a comfort since he eliminated it first. Our lad came to see that this was not at all lighthearted. Though he came a little late, the man left instructing him to head to his room and consume the energy bar. The scenario then changed to the following meeting. Inquiring whether everyone was there, He indicated the team training was about to start. Looking at Min Sung, he inquired about absence from anyone. All disoriented, he answered, "Everyone was there." The man replied that was good, thus they would begin right immediately. Naturally though, he also lacked even knowing whether everyone was present. He started the presentation by stating that today they would be researching the company's founding and history when Tae-sok abruptly entered. Everyone naturally looked since the topic of whether everyone was present had just been asked, and he apologized for being late. That the jackass showed up right then infuriated his roommate. "Come on, this Min Sung guy is all smiles. Where's a waifu? We need one." Then he instructed Tae-sok to approach the front and mentioned he had something to share with the whole Group B before they began. Kim Tae-sok would be taking over from Team B's current leader. Shocked, our lad did not see that coming. Still, he fulfilled his goal of assuming leadership. Our lad considered himself not expecting it to be that simple in finishing the task. He felt not guilty as he had not done anything illegal. Still, he knew that man had to be feeling deceived. The issue was that it would not be at all comfortable now they would be sharing the same room. The lecture stopped a bit later, and the speaker advised everyone to jot down their ideas. He also told Team B's leader to call the group together for a meeting later. Our proactive lad, the ideal worker, hurried everyone to wait before departing. Everyone would have to write less than 2 but more than 1 page, he said. Apart from that, they have to gather at 9:30. Finally, he would form a group, and before dinner, everyone was expected to join it. While he urged everyone to work together, his roommate wasn't particularly pleased. He was in a corner writing stating the group will only be used for data transmission. Our lad stated he was going to suggest that groups A, B, and C enter separately when Min Sung strolled in and inquired what he was doing there. The man thought this was a great idea. He cautioned him, nevertheless, to instruct every group member to switch off their phones. Failing to do so would result in point loss should someone's phone ring. Our lad claimed he would tell everyone and understood. Saying goodbye to our confident lad, who felt he had done a great job, the man advised him to maintain looking after the team and also to concentrate on his own career. Still, the issue was he truly was running out of time. Leading was not a straightforward task. Then his roommate entered the room, sat down next to him, and just gazed at him. The gentleman inquired if Tae-sok wasn't going to tell him what our lad wanted to know what this madman was doing. He inquired once more whether he wasn't going to say anything at all when he didn't reply. Our lad just said he had nothing to do with Min Sung's choosing to be the leader. The man got up, though, and declared that the biggest deception was that he had nothing to do with it. He knew he had to have spoken because he seen the two of them chatting in the morning meeting. Our lad clarified that it was Min Sung who that the three of them go have breakfast together later. That was a pathetic justification, though, since the man claimed he didn't believe it. Our lad sighed, understanding he wouldn't be easy to persuade this man. Saying there had been a misinterpretation, he got up and told him to come back and chat when he felt better. He couldn't explain it now. But the man cursed at him, advised him to stay put, and inquired about his destination. Man, our lad waved goodbye after shutting the door. The scenario moved to the conference room. They were just hanging about when someone knocked on the door begging to enter. It was Min Yom who requested a room change. Min Sung inquired about this. He answered he couldn't live with his current roommate. Min Sung inquired whether his roommate was Tae-sok. The man replied affirmatively, stating he wanted either Tae-sok or him to move out. The man lost the leader post, thus he naturally asked whether he wished to relocate. Should such be the case, he felt let down. Min Yom, however, expressed dismay at the man who turned backstabber and sucked into others. Another individual in the room got up as well, but his friend advised him it would be better to keep out of it. Min Yom continued to yell, wondering whether it was appropriate for a fresh hire to be stabbing his friend in the back. He knew Tae-sok was envious and only sought to seize the stars he was meant to have. Approaching him, our lad advised him to cool off and mentioned it would be better if they spoke outside. He then begged permission to go and declared they would head away. Min Yom, however, disregarded him and said he was speaking with the elder. Even Min Sung advised our lad not to get involved and he would have to speak with Min Yom. Not like he had nothing to say either. That's when he understood, dude, that things were turning grave. Had he suffered a broken back, he wouldn't be jeopardizing the employment-like way. From the start, the man claimed, he had been erring in his leadership role. By 10 p.m., he questioned whether he had finished what expected of him. The underprivileged man answered he hadn't. Then he inquired about his behavior upon being given another chance at 7 a.m. All ashamed, the man tried to say it was accidental. Man, this is considerably too realistic. It's like the boss punishing the defineering poor man without defense. Then Min Sung questioned why someone who fell short of all expectations should remain in leadership. Said the other guys, "The guy was just a beginner. You should calm down." Though at 29 years old, he appeared to be a family guy. Then we have a flashback because our lad called out Min Sung as he was leaving. When he asked what it was, Tae-sok replied he had a request. He wanted him to offer Min Yom still another opportunity, and Min Sung said that Tae-sok stayed by his side till the very last. He wanted to know why he missed this chance the so-called traitor produced. It was because of the moment he clearly asked whether anyone was missing and responded negatively. He wouldn't have lost the job if he had responded honest that someone was missing. Our lad stood at the door like a moron. "Correct? What can you do?" And the manager said he would make sure his wish was accomplished since he wanted to switch rooms. That evening he was supposed to gather his belongings and leave the training camp. The scenario moves to the stairway, and our lad informs his companion he had not said anything. He should wait till dinner and try to atone to the senior so he might keep his job. Given he hadn't eaten all day, the man was most likely simply annoyed. He would most likely forgive him after dinner. Min Yom yells out to our lad at that point, apologizes, and says he wants to thank him. Being a professional employee, our lad claims that despite their disputes, they remain colleagues. They will have to respect each other as colleagues even if they cannot be friends. The scene then moves to him assembling everyone following dinner. Does the group know about El-sung's workouts, he wonders? Since nobody reacts, apparently none knows. Curious one wonders if knowing this is really vital. Our lad believes it seemed really significant based on what he read in the book. Of the 1,000 points they may accrue during training, 50 came from one assessment alone. Teams A, B, and C would square up against one another. The top team would get points. To earn those 50 points then, they should begin training immediately. He claimed to have previously gone over the book and only needed several guys to assist him late at night. He even gave those who took part some of his leader stars. The avaricious ones all seized the opportunity, of course. Capitalism helps them to flourish. The gang left then, although they were thrilled at the possibility of gaining 50 additional points. They were also expressing sympathy for the previous leader, but this one was far superior. Our lad is simply in rejoicing. The least the fools paid attention to what he had to say. He could not, however, stall anymore. Time came for him to create his report. But wow, his buddy was just standing about doing nothing. Moreover, he hasn't altered his mind if you believe he has. Just glance at that furious expression. That brings nightfall. Our lad requests to be let inside the broadcast room after calling out to the seniors, and they ignore his cries. The two are stooped down, looking like fools as he gets there. Saying he might have a look, our lad asks whether the amplifier is broken. Min Sun probes whether he knows how to solve it. Our lad requests to hold the book since he claims to have worked in all kinds of jobs. At this point, he understands his team has already been allocated this chore. Our lad tells them that he had requested everyone to bring it at night, so it was already done while the lads explore it. A few while later, he claims he is done. Confused, the lads ask whether it was indeed that quick. They merely need to do a test, he argues. And the speakers get back to work with it. The fool then says at that instant that the report should be presented. The poor boys had to since the announcement came quite late. They apologize for being late when they get there. The speakers were indeed loud and clear when our lad asked. The man standing next to Min Sun probes what the lad's name is. He responds, nonetheless, that since he already intends to call him for his team, it's advisable to maintain a close check. Our diligent lad asks whether he could announce something to his squad. He orders the particular members to visit the gym. The scene changes then to the gym. Our lad apparently obtained early access there to assist in amplifier repairs. The female next to him probes him on physical activity and that kind of thing. Our lad claims to have worked in construction, thus he had to be rather knowledgeable about it to prevent injuries. One of them inquires as to whether the building site was Ulsan. That absolutely is what our lad says. You would show the process, he said. They should document it and communicate it to all. If completed in 20 minutes, he will shower. Hurried labor, huh? Min Sun's stalker was nearby simply observing. He claimed the lad has a serious side, yet acts little and is pleasant. He naturally wanted to introduce this one to the sales team. The challenge was how he would persuade this lad to choose sales over other fields. Our lad then headed to take a shower. This nasty Min Sun's presence is the only lacking element here. Our lad is tired and knows he will have to distribute more stars to request team assistance. Our lad heard someone saying they had been stabbed in the back as he was ready to enter his room. Inquiring about what transpired and whether she should visit the business, the mother asks, our lad is only listening. Naturally, Min Young is claiming he is about to become 30 and she cannot do it. The mother insists though, claiming they are mistreating her child. She says she's coming to visit, but the man in bed argues it's not really essential. Our lad stays outside using his phone. He chooses to call his mother, that damned capitalist he had neglected. She claims everything is good when he asks how things are going and how the treatment is working. He chats a little. He published the video later that evening, allowing everyone to increase their gymnastics points. Everyone was praising him. They all agreed the new leader was amazing and they would all be watching it. Our lad was all grins, but he soon began to nod off. He woke up the following day to the system flashing. Said was that he had formally started working for a new company. Now, formally a new employee, the lad was about to begin getting paid. Our lad hadn't been told of anything, thus he had no notion, but it appears someone addressed this. The system then said his vision will get an upgrade. He clicked on the tiny message to view what it was. That small elixir changed the jobless eye into the eye of a new hire. Our lad inquired of the system about buying it. The system claimed he merely had to say buy considering the name of the item. He thus repeated the process on a potion and noticed that the little window began to fade. Man, it was something physical. It flew right at him. His childhood best friend was waking downstairs begging him to keep quiet since he was too noisy. Our lad walked out of the room around 5:55 a.m. He claimed he would take charge now. It seems some guys were tending to something for the commander. Obviously, he was a little tired since he arrived so early. Still, he delighted in alone amid all that silence. Perhaps the right moment to investigate that thing was here. A while later, a man declared they would be undergoing another test and assessment. But right now, our lad with his improved eye was ready. He spent the points and already knew most of the correct responses. The group was doing those workouts later. Impressed by Team B's gymnastics performance, the first attractive woman in this costume felt our lad congratulated the fools for their diligence, as he was happy of his squad that had been working hard. The setting moves to the study room. Why our lad studied so much, and why he was compiling those summaries was a question one man asked. Our lad said he wanted a good mark so he could select a decent department. Years went by. Everybody was striving while our lad was concentrated. Yes, smart one. Using a hack makes this simple. But he is also gentle. Sometimes he would drop a clue here and there, maybe regarding what would be on the test. Friday already, and Min-sung cautioned everyone against even considering cheating, since it would be the worst thing they could do. Those that studied with our lad passed the test without trouble. Even the waifus amazed me. Every member of the lad's gang had smiles on their cheeks, and the game of cheating was killing it. Results were out that evening, and everyone was keen to see them. Our lad set off to have a look. Everyone's scores were displayed. Our lad Kim Tae-seok looked to be in first place. Like rather first. And one day in second as well. Hello, why are you shining, boy? By what name is that? You are? He turned to see Min Young looking stupid when he heard someone complaining close behind him. Our lad decided to look to see if this man had ever looked at anything. As it turns out, he marked responses haphazardly, practically opposite acing it. It could have turned out better than that guy's. Our lad was strolling along believing he had nothing to do with the grades of the individual. On the opposite side, his buddies were all applauding, saying it was fantastic to have a first place winner. Everyone also mentioned that his study group comprised all of the top 5. That is ridiculous. He remarked that was not really important. Still, the female near him remarked he was amazing. He went to his room with his buddies and waved goodbye. Knowing that his only location was first since of the employee's eye, he was strolling about. Now the issue was his insecurity as he was attracting too much attention. And somebody right on his tail was watching him, wondering whether that is the supposed Kim Tae-seok. Oh, but she mentioned he differs from his younger years. Remember our lad from back then? She turns around believing she will sort it out later. Here comes a small window though. This time, our lad found himself perplexed. There was obnoxious Min Young seated on the bed when he walked into the room. Angry, he scowled at our lad and questioned why the atmosphere felt so strange. Min Young just asked whether our lad wanted permission to use the stairs. He did not ask anything else. Confused, our lad inquired what he was talking about, and the crazy one just instructed him to respond whether he liked it or not. Alright, this man was having mental breakdown. And fool is deserving of a punch. Too sad he lost his employment. One could have considered this mess as a dungeon. Then our lad urged him to be careful, even though he said he would pretend he didn't hear such rubbish. Apologizing, the man got up. Then he changed his face to indicate whether it was what he was looking for. Approaching him closely, he declared he was going to ask a question. Apart from wanting to be first to humiliate him, he wanted to discover whether it was sufficient to grab the leader post. Our lad claimed that he was performing the contrary on the test, so his ranking is not important. But the man poked him in the chest, claiming he couldn't be in last place if he were the leader. He understood he should be honest, realizing he had to have gained some points, and it would be prudent for him to promptly clarify his relationship with the elders. The man kept pestering our lad, urging him to explain his replacement's reason. Apparently, there's some relationship. Either he knew someone in the family, or it appears like he paid some money. Our boy, losing his tolerance, ordered him to consider his words more carefully. He blocked the guy's hand, urging him to stop with such nonsense, and added that if he wanted to accuse him of something, he should first locate some evidence. However, of course, the guy then stated that it seemed like he had been hit. He vehemently declared his arm hurt and his wrist was in discomfort. He slumped to the ground like he was sick, asking why it ached so much and if it had been broken. Our lad remarked patience has its limits, and he should stop with this. But the guy rose up and asked whether he thought his reaction was overdone. Taxi said that everything that transpired was his own fault, but Minyong claimed that it was all unfair and that it was actually Tasiak's fault. If he were going to be fired, he would take Tasiak down with him. He started yelling, alleging he was being abused and crying for aid, but no one was outside to hear it. Night fell. Our child was sitting on a seat in the park, peaceful and isolated, but deep in thought, clearly confused of what to do. Until a female in a skirt approached him. She asked whether he was Tasiak. Man, I thought she'd be prettier. She almost looks like a man in a wig. But all right. He answered yes. He was Tasiak. She said that it seemed like he was pretty haughty. Confused, our boy inquired what she was talking about. She claimed she'd get straight to the topic and inquired if he provided money to assist at Minsung. Our boy seemed to understand what was going on. He claimed he had no idea where she heard that, but he had never done anything like that. The woman claimed Minsung received that mark as there were concerns he leaked the answers. Our lad answered he wasn't sure who she was, but thought she related to Minyong. The woman answered that he should be careful what he says, else he would be kicked out from training. Our lad simply wanted to know if she truly thought they shared the answers during staff development. She stated that was irrelevant, as they only had circumstantial proof of the test leak occurring. She asked whether he truly believed he could get out from under this. Saying he had no idea who she was, our lad advised her to cease attacking him. She told him she hadn't attacked him at any point and inquired if he was in some form anxious. Our lad countered, saying she seemed nervous trying to accuse him. Minyong's beating and the leaked test were only imagined in his mind. Nothing about them was true. Furthermore, lacking was any circumstantial evidence. She questioned his actual belief. She told our lad he would listen even if he only asked to be excused, and advised him to stay seated. She stated he didn't know how to handle people to get engaged in this kind of scenario, and warned him she might get him kicked from this place. She began disparaging him out of nowhere, asking whether he knew who Minyong's parents were, and cautioned that nobody would believe him even in absence of proof. He needed to learn that individuals without money should just stay quiet. The fact that he didn't know this kind of thing was what made it his fault. Our boy just replied that she was being a snob. He underlined that, as he indicated, no one leaked the test and he only passed because he studied with his classmates, and that the whole idea of him bribing Minsung didn't make any sense. He didn't even have money to attend a university and yet worked on building sites. And evidently, she thought it was improper for someone who didn't go to a good university to obtain the top grade. He went away, claiming he wouldn't talk to her anymore. She was left enraged, wondering how the darn training could treat her like that. As he was walking away, a car passed past him. The woman from the company apologized for and had to go over there, and the lady in the red outfit claimed she had to come late like this because her son was being thrashed at the firm. She was getting more and more furious, and the staff tried to calm her down, stating she couldn't do anything like that. Our child was merely observing from the side, right? You can already guess who it is. She entered, saying that she had instructed them to take care of her son. So, why was this happening? The employee basically tried to calm her down, claiming this was a training area. Our kid already knew it involved the damn Minyong, and the woman gazed at him. But our boy was thinking that in the end, the one buying others was this guy. The scene turns to Minsung, tired. Our boy passes by and wonders what happened. Minyong's father was in the National Assembly, and it felt like now he was about to lose his job. Our child asks if it was wrong for him to have received the highest score, and the guy responds no. The grade he obtained was well-deserved, thus it wasn't inappropriate. Our child argues that packing his bags might have been an exaggeration. It wasn't guaranteed that he would lose his job just like that. However, Min-sung noted that the world isn't as easy as he thinks. The boy's father was a congressman, so it appeared like the conclusions had already been reached. Even though Min-young was a lousy employee, he should have let it slip. This happened because he wasn't competent enough at appraising the scenario. Our son smiled and wondered how a salesman could be so feeble. He shouldn't worry when, in fact, the person is innocent. Min-sung said that his innocence didn't affect the fact that the guy's father was a politician. But our boy stated he knew of a method. Shocked, Min-sung inquired what he meant by saying. Our son claimed that from the beginning, he had already known a solution, and now he had made his decision. We saw a flashback to the moment when he waved goodbye to the guy. He proceeded to his room, and as he entered, a system window appeared. It inquired if he would put someone in danger for his own profit. Our boy was puzzled, unsure if he should choose. However, the system warned that the moment for the decision will come shortly in the future. Inside a room, someone apologizes for a disciplinary committee meeting so late at night. The director thinks it's unacceptable that the answers were leaked. That woman from earlier says it's truly the worst-case scenario, and that's why she wanted to suggest that Kim Tae-se be disqualified and ejected from the institution, along with disciplinary measures for Kim Min-sung, who was the senior supervising him. The mother, with a face that looks like she deserves a punch, asks when they will address the assault her kid suffered. She wanted to know why her little angel had been abused like a dog and warned that if they didn't manage it, the whole world would find out what occurs in that training. The director stated they would have to hear all sides' viewpoints before making any judgments. He inquired whether anyone had any concerns to this, and everyone responded that they did not. Obviously, with a sophisticated strategy, they looked at each other and said they had no objections either. The director then looks at the accusation that Min-young made against the youngster, questioning what evidence there was. He claimed that all the people who came from outstanding universities still couldn't earn a flawless score. Even within Team B, there was only one perfect score, and the worst part is that it was from the boy who received his diploma through the government's credit system. The director asks whether the only proof he has is a rational suspicion. Min-young says that it is. The director then says they will examine the second item on the schedule and asks if he believes Min-seong has any relationship with Tae-sok, as not only did he lose his position, but he also obtained the highest score. However, much like the first piece of evidence, it's all circumstantial and he has no real proof. Min-young thinks that's precisely right. The director claims that, as expected, there's no tangible evidence. However, it's still a fair doubt. So if Tae-sok has nothing against it, they wouldn't have decided to accept the things Min-young said. The guy next to him agrees. The head replies that he will first question Min-song whether he has anything to oppose what Min-young said. Min-song states that he respects himself and sadly doesn't have any evidence. The head says he understands and asks whether Tae-sok has any evidence. Our boy says he does not. At that point, Min-seong is astonished. The head asks if they will have to accept what Min-young said. Our lad jumps up and says that, on the contrary, there is someone outside who can verify his innocence, and he would like them to be permitted into the meeting. The mother is surprised and Min-young looks silly, while that unpleasant woman just gives a glance. Min-seong appears to know what to expect, or maybe he's hesitant. But we jump back to when the mother arrived angry, screaming she was going to attack everyone in that place. That's when the system window came. It claimed that in this world, you can't survive alone, and he would have to choose a colleague to save him from this catastrophe. Human interactions were also founded on trust, so if he helped people, he would receive support in return. He should call on them because if they were sincere pals, it would find a way. Our child told that obnoxious machine to get lost since he was going to do as he was taught. Our child then sent a message in the study group indicating he was in trouble because of the grade he obtained. Some folks were impressed, and others felt it was to be expected. Seeing his reactions and no one saying anything, he thought that maybe no one would aid him. However, one commenter stated that in this case, he should be commended, not accused. But this person recognized that no one would believe his explanation of innocence. That's why he was seeking for help. The gang then declared they were all ready and seemed excited. Our son simply thanked them. It was at that point that he walked past Min-sung. Back at the meeting, he asks whether it's acceptable for the group to come in. The director replies that if it's going to help, they can enter. With that, the first individual enters, asking for permission. It's Choi Jin-young, the person who studied every day with our boy. The leader asks whether he knows what Tae-sok is being accused of and if he has any evidence. He responds sure, adding that he has the evidence and requests for the evaluation documents. The chief glances at the guy next to him and asks him to fetch them. Jin Young then puts some papers on the table and claims that they are what he's been studying with leader Tae-sok. The director queries how this is proof and what it explains. The guy states that all of them studied along with Tae-suk all night long, and in front of them, each one missed one question while he got everything correct. The chief stated that it was apparent. Clearly, more material was leaked than they had previously assumed. However, he believes it would be the case if they hadn't all missed separate questions. The guy suggests that they could have purposefully missed one or two, but the director orders him to continue. Jin Young then states that there's also a list of everyone who missed less than 3 questions on the entire test, and they had collected signatures from everyone to confirm that it was true. The person replied it was okay and that they would have a look. And sure enough, when it comes to the test, many people indeed missed fewer than 3 questions. Jin Young believes that the problem isn't because the test was leaked, but rather that it was too simple. Even though Tae-suk had a poorer educational background than others, a flawless score in this situation didn't matter much. Additionally, considering that he passed the L-sung test and had professional experience, it was even less unlikely. The filmmaker adds that, absolutely, considering all of that, it makes sense. He then asks what he thinks of Min-sung giving the boy a flawless score in the administrative portion. Jin Young says he thinks it's fair as he was constantly trying his best as a leader and helping everyone. He also assisted everyone on Team B to earn better marks. This evaluation is relative compared to others. Therefore, if he wasn't the one with the highest score, then who would be? If it wasn't him, then it would be suspicious that the other person might have some kind of relationship. The system, which appears very much alive, congratulates our youngster for having made nice pals. Outside, the rest of the company is eager to listen in on the chat, until Jin Young opens the door. He's all jittery, stating he was afraid and thought he was going to die. The director then argues that Jin Young's evidence is stronger than Min Young's claims. He determines that Tae-sok and Min-sung won't suffer any harm from the claims made by Min Young. And clearly, he won't accept any counter-arguments using the same rationale, so they would have to give the mother bangs on the table and demands if Tae-sok is claiming that her son is a liar. Even if he earned a perfect grade on that test, she wanted to know what was going on with him apparently beating her son. However, Min-sung jumps up and declares he's had enough of this. Our boy advises him to calm down or he'll lose his job, but he claims that he's convinced Tae-sok never laid a hand on Min Young and that they were just doing this to hurt him for no reason. Our boy says there's no need for this and asks him to calm down. The weird Min-sung asks if he has any proof, and with no other choice, he merely sits down with a frown. Our youngster was only observing, and now the mother and son were starting to feel confident. Our youngster then cries out to the director and says he will present evidence of the alleged violence. Back to the system, when it asked if he would cause difficulty for someone for his own advantage, our youngster wondered if he really had to choose. The system advised that although it would be better if he prepared, it was not time for that choice yet. It instructed him to leave his phone's audio recorder running for 1 hour on constant mode. He should be ready since the moment to use it would not be far off. He came into the room at that and discovered Min Young. He plays the recording back during the conference, and naturally the full conversation starts to play out. Min Young claims that should there be issues, he would bring him down with him and that Tae-sok would also be too fired from. Then all of a sudden he began screaming that he was being beaten, causing commotion so everyone may hear. He also states in the tape that he doesn't give a damn whether or not he's lying. There was no one outside, so he was going to shout that he was being hit. The mother observed that it would be challenging to refute this. The woman now saw she had no way out. Clearly, the director took great seriousness. After spending more than 10 minutes doing this, our lad asks whether they would like to keep listening. The mother now scowls at her son. And boy, our son is ready with a threat, right? He says he heard that his father is one of the top congressmen and imagines what would happen if this recording were made public. So he should accept his mistake and depart the training field, and then he'll erase those files. He had 3 false allegations from the same person, so he's being generous in letting the guy depart like this. The president responds that if he actually accepts this kind of conclusion, he has no problem with it. And now the son is being disciplined. Meanwhile, the woman with glasses recognizes she backed the wrong side, doesn't she, fool? The scene transitions to the mother departing in the car. Someone reaches out to Senior Yeon Young. It's a mention that she seems to know how to bow down. Man, he may be fired for harassment at this rate. He was curious why she appeared when she ordinarily wouldn't get involved in this. Would she only get a car or a house from Min, Young's mother? She basically warned him not to get involved, since it had nothing to do with him. He answered that in a way it did because it would influence one of his students. She then asked him whether he was accusing her of something. He asked whether they should travel that distance. Was it merely an accusation? Then he played the audio from the moment she chastised Tae-sok, discussing Min, Young's relatives, and stating he should have realized it was his fault for choosing that boy against advice. Making faces and telling Min Seom to stop, this girl was behaving as though she were at the dentist. That was good, he added, but right now they were going to have a small talk. She wanted to know then what he wanted. Man, he simply said he wanted her out of there and was nasty too. She should ask whether she would comply and state personal reasons for her leaving. She agreed, then advised him to turn over the recording. It was time to straighten this now, he said. He advised her to phone HR and either arrange a strategy meeting or quit. She became enraged and turned back immediately to say, if that is the case, he is headed to the conference. He instructed her immediately to remain in place. Pulling out his phone, he started typing something. HR answered naturally, and she apologized for phoning so late. She began fabricating stories, stating she wanted to quit, and naturally asserting it was all for personal reasons. Min Seom was simply leaving in meantime. The scene changes to show our lad fallen on the ground. It had been far more tiring than he had anticipated. That was then announced. The woman had lost her job, and that fool Min Yeon had been expelled. The scene veers forward a little to reflect their travel preparation. Our boy is just calling Team B and ordering them to get on bus 3. Then someone walks toward the lad. She walks up all pleasant, asking if he is the head of Team B, known as Tae-sok. Our youngster's all ruffled, isn't he? She stays there, waiting for him to shake her hand, and the fool starts scrubbing his shirt, stating he was too dirty. He then leans in, all red, and says he's never seen her around. She identifies herself as Seo Yeonji and remembers that she was the one who placed second. She must be angry. She replies that this week she's the leader of Team C, and he asks what happened to her. She claims it's typical for leaders to change weekly, but apparently Team B wasn't interested in changing. That's when he discovered he had been kept as the leader and hadn't even noticed. She says it's funny that he didn't even understand it, but she'd like to know when he'll let go of her hand. He speaks her name then and swears he recalls now. She finds it unusual and questions if he's actually that Kim Tae-suk. Apparently, there's another Kim Tae-suk around. He says he noticed her name in second place and thinks that's impressive, but she says it's not appropriate for somebody who came in first to say something like that, and that it appears like he's saying it to hurt her. Our child apologizes and says he spoke without thinking. She claims it's cool, she was only being a bit fun, her dress doesn't scream waifu, it's all work clothes. She explains that if he joins the planning office, they'll be seeing more in the future. Our child, bewildered, wonders what that is, and the system answers it's the best group of brains in the organization, and the wage runs from 0 to infinity. Seeing the infinity part, our boy is shocked. She wonders why he's staring at her back so much, and he answers, it's nothing, he's just insane. She claims that tomorrow is the weekend, and they'll have some free time. So what does he think about dinner? Our boy, looking embarrassed, asks whether it's a meal for two, like how. She claims she believed it would be okay with the two of them. She wanted to have some strategic meetings with him as she needed to be in the top 5 to attain the position she desired, and she imagines he also wants the companionship of another top-ranked person. She tells our son to take her number, use Sly One. She was confident it wouldn't hurt for the two of them to get closer since they both wanted a good job. With that, she looked at the clock and stated she had to go lead her team. I've never seen this boy so flustered. He told her she could go. With that, she left and couldn't take his eyes off her. However, she turned around and explained that no matter what their colleagues did, they were now an alliance. Man, she already made her way into his heart. However, in the background, there's another person. Clearly, he witnessed everything, and that flush on his face says a lot. Our boy was all bewildered. He understood that it didn't appear like a very pure intention. The trouble was that it was also hard to understand what she was actually pursuing. He was a bit worried. The scene turns to her observing a board. Of course, she was merely keeping an eye on our boy and another boy who was at the very bottom. She had some fascinating information. The president's kid, dubbed our lad, was at this training place. So that guy we saw at the beginning chatting to the president is also named Kim Tae-seok, and she adds that considering everything, the top one must be the president's son. It wouldn't make sense for him to be at the bottom. But later that night, our kid went to harass Jin Young. He began by asking what he wanted to talk about so late at night. Our son was terrified after Min Young and was intending to bring his friend along to the meeting. His friend claimed he had no intention of eating. He didn't feel like going out. However, our son didn't answer. The friend asked what he was thinking. Obviously, he was just attempting to figure out what that girl's purpose was. She was all grins, stating she was simply joking with him. To him, this whole process of forging a partnership to get into that strategic committee appeared very suspect, especially since, in the end, she said it didn't matter what the other colleagues said. They were now an alliance. He didn't want to be too hostile, but he also didn't know much about her. Man, he's frightened she's some beast who wants to eat him. Oh, I get it. In the bad sense, not the nice bad sense, but the awful bad meaning to mess him up. You got it. But he was already thinking that she was smart, that she seemed confident, and that likewise. Come on, are you going to stand there without saying anything? You jerk, what are you going to say? At that point, his friend grabbed him by the neck and told him to stop ignoring him. Our son replied it hurt, and the friend promptly asked him to explain why he wanted to chat. Tezo then disclosed that he had committed to go out to eat with Yanji. Jin Young inquired if he was talking about the girl who got in second place, and our lad remarked that his reaction was odd. However, it was Jin Young who remarked that she was recognized as the goddess of that training camp. Man, no offense, but that training camp must be really weak, huh? Our boy inquired since when, and the friend said since the first day, explaining that it's because she's really gorgeous and intelligent in the department. Look, and our boy intervened, saying, "That's enough of that." The friend then asked when they were going to eat together. Our child stood up and said immediately. The friend understood that she was in second place, our kid was in first, and he was in third. That distribution didn't seem like a coincidence. Our boy remarked it wasn't a coincidence. Was Jin Young also hoping to land in the strategic planning department? Jin Young wondered why he needed to know that all of a sudden, and whether it had anything to do with the supper. He stated it was Yanji who mentioned it to him, and that she also indicated he could invite people who were at the top of the leaderboard, which is why he was inviting his friend. Our child stated he should have mentioned it, but his friend thought it was fine. He responded, "Yeah, that has been his ambition since he started studying at law school." Our child questioned if he wasn't lying, and he responded no, that had always been his dream. Now in front of a bus stop, someone's mother was waiting for her kids, wondering if the boy would actually be late. But look, there he is approaching, right? The most beautiful of all the workers flashed a smile. However, she soon realized that our boy had brought someone along. She became a bit upset, right? She wanted the president's son all to herself. Jin Young greeted her, and she said she believed Tae-sok was going to come alone. Our child claimed it was a surprise to him too. He assumed someone would arrive with her. At the restaurant with the food already on the table, everyone was looking at Tae-suk, who had a peculiar expression. He couldn't quite figure out what she was thinking, and his companion made a statement to lighten the mood, stating it was an honor to be with her at the table. She stated she felt honored too. It was only unfortunate that she couldn't buy something even nicer for them. Confused, Jin Young questioned what was wrong. She added that the two of them being first and third place was wonderful. Our boy stated it was great, but that she was equally impressive for being in second place. However, she only glanced at him and returned to eating with a blank expression. She then claimed she would explain the purpose for this lunch. She claimed everyone already knew about his club and the 5 children, who always obtained good scores. Even though no one talked much about it, everyone knew. A person who oddly memorized all of Il-sung's gymnastics, as well as aced the first test. Not only that, but he also ensured that 5 others succeeded as well. And because of that, the senior from Team C was really angry. And because he didn't provide tips about the gymnastics, everyone lost 0.25 points, and of course the leader was replaced. She mentioned it was good because she was appointed leader. He said it was sorry to hear. Jin Young then questioned what her genuine aim was today. Was it to gather additional information on the competition, or to remove impediments to get inside the strategic planning office? She stated she had nothing to conceal, so she would say it plainly. She wanted to meet the person who dared to steal her first position, and also get to know his 5 brothers. And when she learned about Tae-sok's experience, it made her angry, and she thought she wanted to get to know these folks better. She stated she was certainly wanting to get into strategic planning and asked about them. Jin Young affirms that he's also intrigued, and our youngster says he hasn't chosen yet, he's simply doing his best every day. She says that's disheartening as doing your best is what everyone does. She questioned where else someone like him would go if not into strategy planning. She added that he should consider it as he didn't know much about those 5 kids of his, but there was a method to ensure he'd stay in the top 5. He says he doesn't know how that would be feasible, but asks if it wouldn't be preferable for her to choose someone from Team C. But Jin Young covers his mouth and says the boy is lying. On the way there, Lee asks whether he was also going, and that also shows that he intends to. She adds, it's a comfort to hear that he's not completely lost at least, because if that were the case, the meeting that day would have been superfluous. Man, this idea of the strategic office is self-serving. Calm down, girl. Our boy asks if it's guaranteed that the top 5 will go there, and she responds yes. Jin Young mentions that with this female plus the 5 in his group, that makes 6, thus someone would be left out. She says that's how life is, they're competitors and not everyone will succeed. She asks what they think about a negotiation. Back in college, she was a cheerleader, which provided her an advantage in group events. That's when our boy discovers that there will be some calisthenics activities involving large crowds of people. In total, you might win up to 150 points, with 50 of those for being the group conductor. That's why she's convinced she'll secure first place with the incentives, and there was a method to make him the conductor for the males, which would also put him at the top. He wants to know what she wins from this, as if he becomes the men's conductor, she loses the possibility to be in first position. The office lady takes a sip of her coffee and says she wants to be accepted into his study group. Our son didn't expect that. That's when it dawns on him that the top 6 in the entire place are the folks that study with him, except for her. She might have intended to monitor his study group for spies. To be honest, I didn't say anything. There are like 3 girls in there looking prettier than her. Let's just call it that. He is thinking that although it is up to the rest of the group, he doesn't mind her joining. He says he will ask the other members as he cannot make an independent decision about this. She says she understands and will wait for his answer tomorrow. The scene turns to the study group with him giving the news. When the right-leaning girl asks who wants to join, he says Siu Yanji. The guys state right away they are clearly cool about her joining. Another girl agrees, adding that the goddess is in that place. The guy chimes in again, stating it's banned to refuse the brightest and most beautiful female, and he wants to know if he has to buy fried chicken to celebrate her arrival. Then he says that she's not participating for free since the catch is that he'll be the conductor for the mass games. Another girl adds that's less significant since it would be excellent to have her in the group, confessing she's jealous of her beauty, but honestly, she's not sure. Now they're sketching all of them unattractively, possibly to make us think the other female is prettier. Everyone is enthusiastic, talking about getting fried chicken and drinks. Our youngster recognizes their reply was considerably more positive than he imagined. Later that same day at 10 p.m., our lad was explaining the topic to everyone as usual with his hack. Then someone asks if they can come in. Of course it's her, now without her business clothes. She introduces herself, even though everyone already knows her, and says it's a joy to be part of the group. The boys are already providing help, asking if she needs something to eat and welcome her. Meanwhile, our boy is only observing. Everyone there is interested in her now. Time sped swiftly, and a week passed. The girl asks if Jin Yan has completed studying for the day. Yes, she says, but there was something more crucial. Her pal wondered why Taziok seemed so amazing. He was merely covering the absolutely required things, she remarked. Usually, given such a short period, it is difficult to grasp everything. She is convinced it is impossible unless he possesses privileged knowledge, so proving he is the son of the president. Many days went by. The same occurred once more, with Taziok ranking first. Apologizing, he tells his friend Hyunsu he is not even in the top 5 and he done his best. Given they all belong to the same study group, he advises him to try harder. Everybody there is a monster, the man claims. His outcome is typical. Our lad says he has to push himself further since he walks away, stating maybe next time he will even take first place since there is nothing he cannot accomplish. Yeonji is simply seeing that he keeps rather solid relationships in addition to having good scores. Perhaps it's because of his laid-back attitude and decent sense of humor. He explains why the group finds the lad appealing. See how surrounded he is. She considers it weird that the son from a rich family should exhibit peculiar behavior. For her, though, this was entertainment. Fun, how precisely. The scene changes to someone creating a PPT on some corporate policies. Of course, our stupid lad is the one struggling. Jin Young asks whether he needs assistance as his presenting time is approaching. Our lad says he needs to do this on his own sadly, but he values the offer. He's not sure what to write in a given section and is all perplexed. Time was running short and it was not simple. Still, don't panic. The small system flashes on demand. Right in front of him, it says he had 2 honorary points for maintaining number 1 for 2 straight weeks. He has questions and wants to know what is on offer. The first talent is PowerPoint Master, and the second is Presentation Mastery. Easy mode, huh? Look at that idiotic grin. He got exactly what he wanted. I appreciate how it swiftly transitions to him thanking everyone for attending. His friends jokingly question whether he's got some kind of business solo leveling scheme. Jin Young even remarks that he will most likely be first once more, and that his first try performance is rather impressive. Our boy says he simply thinks that since they're friends. Another guy walks up to give his presentation, and our boy comments that he learned a lot on the building site. He used to undertake physical workouts in front of over 600 people, and frequently had to argue and discuss building concerns. Sometimes it takes numerous days simply to get paid. That's why, a long time ago, he learned how to communicate and be calm. However, for his pals, who didn't go through anything like that, it was more tough. He had just been lucky to have worked with many people of varied ages from a young age. The only thing making him insecure now is that he's sticking out too much. Will he be able to function the same way at work? But he's sure that eventually everyone will get used to these things. The scene switches to an auditorium. A bunch of folks from the old universities that everyone attended are there, and our construction boy, of course, is all alone. Someone approaches and wonders why he's alone. It's Min Sung, who suggests that our lad should head back to his room since he doesn't belong to any university. Our son says he's fine there. Min Sung encourages him not to worry, as his previous schooling isn't everything. Our boy claims he understands, but it can't help feeling that way. The poor child was all depressed. Even the senior observed that the child was feeling low, so he instructed him to accompany him. Outside, he explains that the head of the Eolsung group likes pools and saunas. That's why every structure he develops has one of these. He invites our boy to the sauna, which leaves him bewildered. Our boy says it's kind of odd. I think so too, but whatever. Min Sung asks what they would do during the 2-hour meeting. On the way, our son reveals that he also went to one of these saunas on the construction site. Min Sung believes that's all due of the president's superstition. The scene transitions to the two of them showering. Mam starting to get terrified of Min Sung. He looks at our son and thinks he has a good physique. Taezik just claims that he doesn't have a horrible physique either. He explains that he's becoming old, therefore he has to take care of his appearance. Because he works in the sales department, he needs to go to various pubs and stuff like that, so he has to take care of himself. He then informs Taezik that he's about to say something. He orders him to go to the sales department, saying he'll train him. Our youngster, with a perplexed expression, asks why sales. Min Sung adds he knows that no one needs many connections to get inside that place. All he would need is to remain diligent and keep excellent behavior. Our guy apologizes and says he still has to make his decision. Like a fool, he returns into the sea, diving in to copy the president. The system window shows right then. Could it be that the president has one of these too? For the first time, he receives something very excellent. For being in first place, he obtains a potion that can cure any sickness, including his back discomfort. A little later, they're in the sauna sweating, and Min Sung encourages him to go to the sales department because he'll help with all he needs, ensuring 100% success. Our boy explains there's a reason he's hesitant, and the guy asks what it is. He then claims that he's aiming to join the strategic planning office. The senior asks whether he's sure and smiling. Our boy says yes. Man, now they went for a chilly shower. But wait, what kind of disaster is this? Min Sung urges him not to go to that department since the work there will destroy him. Everyone who works there got in through connections, so he would be isolated. Even though it's considered a great site, it won't lead him far in life. But in the sales department, at least he'd be well rewarded for his efforts. He had to remember that the world wasn't fair, and he had experienced that here. Our lad wonders how he knew all this, and swears he would follow the advice to heart. Min Sung explains that when he did the training, that was his goal too, but everything changed. He was in the top 4 during his training, and also had the option to join that department. He wonders whether he would have to try out every job for a whole year in order to be on that squad. However, he failed in the final selection. They claim the explanation was simply that he came from a less-known university. He lacked a strong educational background. Our child feels a bit disheartened hearing this from his senior, and doesn't understand why he's urging him to get into sales. He could enter sales at any point though, but the other possibility might only present itself once. Mentally, he apologizes to the senior, but he was going to try to get into the strategic planning office. A little bit later, a guy enters a room and asks another guy if he's joined the company. The second guy replies he doesn't even know who this person is and asks how he knows who he is. This kid is the one who has the exact same name as our protagonist and is the son of the vice president, ranked 259. The guy with him introduces himself and claims they met once at an international university. However, the second guy advises him to shut up and quit pretending he knows him and to stop saying superfluous things. Besides, no one can know he's here now. The guy says he understood fine. It's just that he didn't expect to find him there. The deep web Tasiak advises him to quit flattering him and asks if there's anything he can teach him. The guy responds that if he wants, he has several solutions to last year's queries. The child claims he already has those and wonders if there's a great location to hang out around there. The guy claims there isn't, and the kid's demeanor changes, urging him to go lost. The guy apologizes, stating he doesn't know anything about those topics. The kid then begs him to hurry up and find something for him to drink. The guy just says he'll be right back. The deep web Tasiak wonders why he needs to go through everything if he isn't going to obtain the president's post, but it was unavoidable since, in the end, his grandfather was going to transfer the company on to his father, so it was never going to be his. That's when he remembers that maybe the guy who was chatting to him was one of his father's friends. At that point, the person takes a glance at the ranks and finds the name Kim Tasiak. The dad gets all enthusiastic, thinking the vice president would adore hearing his son is in first place. He quickly calls to tell him that his son is in first place for the second week. Of course, the father wonders whether it's truly true. The guy next to him says that it seems like sharing confidential knowledge truly paid off. The father replies that indeed, his son is maturing and becoming a source of pride for the family. The father then wonders about the president's condition. The guy replies that sadly, he's in good health and will probably live another 10 years. The father finds it shocking and wonders how Bastard could survive such long. The man standing near him notes that occasionally things do change. Who knows if he is hiding his health's truth? And the vice president notes that could be the case. He has to somehow guard the company's rights. Little by bit, the standing person claims, they are purchasing out the remaining population to get more and more allies. The scene moves to those asking Yanji whether those flags are sufficient. Yes, she says. Then she advises everyone to get one. They will then start practicing after watching the footage from last year. Excited, Taesiok tells everyone to do their best. The group says, of course they will, and collectively, they'll succeed. With that, the practices for the mass games began. Man, they're learning to dance K-pop for the firm. Our boy's legs are hurting, but where's the back discomfort now, huh? That one's gone. Everyone kept practicing and watched our youngster on stage. The announcement was made that the mass games would begin. All of Taesiok's pals were supporting him and giving their best. Everyone had to grab a flag of each color. And the final practices began. But of course, there was certain to be a tiny problem. One of the guys from our boys group goes up to the deep web Taesiok and tells him to put in some work. But he just reacts by asking who the hell the child thinks he is. The unfortunate guy knew he wasn't very good at this, so he decided to tell Taesiok. He informed him that the guy with the same name wasn't complying, and our kid stated he'd go talk to him. Becky goes, becoming engaged in another disaster. He introduced himself and inquired if the guy had the same name, who confirmed he did. Our child merely inquired if he was dissatisfied with something and if he could help with anything. The person basically told him to stop harassing him. Then our boy asks whether he wants to be taken off the team. The guy is astonished. What do you mean? Our boy suggests he may leave him out of the team and explain he got hurt. That way you won't lose points. After all, they had enough of people regardless. Excited, the deep web Taesiok asks whether he'll take credit for that. With that, the mass games commenced a few days later. I thought it was going to be that day. Man, what kind of absurd attire is this? I told you it was K-pop. Everyone was organized, ready to do the routine. And our son was coordinating the men's group, saying that it was for Elson. He's turned into a coach, that scoundrel. Up there, a person was recording with a camera that looks like a bazooka. One of the guys watching turns to the director and says that the atmosphere in that training group appears very decent. Both conductors were doing extremely well. It was absolutely worth paying attention to them. The camp director says it looks he'd like Mr. Taesiok from Hyundai. His positions would be taken into consideration. The vice president asks if the kid's name is likewise Kim Taesiok. The genuine one is looking at his name in 257th spot. He's been in the same position for 3 weeks and wonders whether that bastard does anything than studying. He didn't want his father to hear about something like this. And exactly at that time, his phone rang. He pondered what was going on. His credit card limitations had been much raised. Emotional, he asked whether his father was in a decent frame of mind. They then arranged an executive meeting to examine the new personnel, and the man seated at the table noted his place. Knowing the lad was useless, the old man was stunned. Given he was 18 points ahead of everyone else, the other individual also mentioned there was even a possibility he would wind up in first place generally. The grandfather already knew that for the boy to be in that position, something really dishonest must have been done. Another fool, one of those observing who I assumed to be the father but isn't, claimed he was also present at the mass games and saw Kim Tae-seok was doing really well organizing everyone. The grandfather questioned if this was truly true. He realized the guy had no reason to lie, so he decided he would have to review the tape. If Tae-seok had genuinely led everyone, it indicated the boy had matured. With that, they turned off the lights and stated they would play the movies. Everyone was watching intently. Yeonji emerged first, urging everyone on. Then our boy started with his coaching speech. The guy next to him stated it was very great to have such a talented grandson, and there was our son shouting in front of everyone. However, the father stood up astonished, asking who that maniac was, because it wasn't his kid. He knew it made sense. How could that kid change so radically overnight? And the granddad was just observing from the corner. Even though he knew it wasn't his grandchild, he appeared to recognize the boy. That's when he remembered our boy. Of course, that was from that day at the sonnet, right? That day, he wished the youngster well and stated he hoped he would fulfill his aspirations. And now he was grinning, claiming the lad had eventually entered LSUM. And the elderly man naturally objected, even though everyone else around was praising the grandson and calling him outstanding. The guy was perplexed. The president clarified that he knew someone else, not his grandson. When he inquired about the ending date of the training camp, the man answered next week. Perhaps, he continued, it would not be a terrible idea to drop by. The father arrived in the conference room totally demoralized. He asked his pal where he was when he phoned, and he gave him orders to bring his bastard son right away before he could reply. The kid was displaying his credit card at a nearby opulent pub, and his pals were discussing how his father had at last freed more money. When one of the guys questioned whether he intended to pay in installments, he naturally responded not. Saying anything was incorrect, the man swiped the card. He asked Tae-seok if he had another card and informed him that one had been blocked. He advised him to use another card as that one belonged to his father and said it was impossible. The man swiped it one more and remarked something seemed unusual, but this card also had reported as lost and been blocked. Tae-seok, perplexed, claimed something seemed strange. His father had lately raised his limit. He stood there, all uncomfortable, not knowing what to reply when the man inquired whether he had another card. The man cautioned him he would have to learn to live without cards or money. They were heading on an outing to tour areas of the city a bit later. It was worth 20 points, but those who wanted not to scale the mountain should not take part. Min-sung asked our lad how he felt as the exercise was almost finished. It had been well worth it, hence he declared he was happy. The senior then said that while the girl next door appeared either fatigued or furious, he had remarkably maintained first place all through. But our boys' group consisted of all smiling people. He advised the party to always go in pairs since the midnight climb would be risky. With that, off they headed on their midnight excursion. Our lad turned around and realized everyone appeared a little worn out. This evening climb wasn't particularly easy. There was a paved road. Alternatively, perhaps it wasn't as simple as our lad was tired. Min-sung questioned our lad what was wrong since he appeared tired. He seemed to still not have taken the potion and was having back trouble. The teacher observed he already carried painkillers and inquired about his length of use, implying that, should that be the case, it would be advisable for him to stop. Our lad said nevertheless, he had no choice as he didn't want to be disqualified. He urged the elder to act as though he knew nothing about it. The senior remarked that was good, but wondered whether he could truly carry on. Our lad replied he wasn't sure whether he could, but he had to push on as he had resolved to top the mountain. He thus requested a man to do him a favor and pretend as though he knew nothing. Min-sung, however, thought it was insanity and questioned why he was pushing himself so relentlessly. Our lad asked himself the same question throughout the ascent. Naturally, he also reminded himself that he wouldn't have started in the first place if he hadn't been pushing himself thus far. The medicines were fading before daylight, but he wasn't going to quit up even if it ached like hell. He therefore ascended the mountain and even snapped a picture. Although I expected more drama, we are already in the awards ceremony. Of course, among them was our fool. He is, with his buddies and the oddity in the middle there. Min-sung notes that the president himself would be handing them medals on this historic event. Kim Chang-mo then walks onto the stage. Everybody applauds like a bunch of fools. Since he never shows up in the media, our lad finds this individual fascinating. Coming out, the elderly man greets everyone with great grins, and our lad finds great shock right away. He naturally remembers who the elderly man is. Our lad begins to sweat frantically, and his friend next by sees. She reminds herself that she is Yeonji, and that now she is back to express her thanks for the favor the president performed 10 years ago. Minsung says at this point that our lad will get a certificate for his performance. The president probes him on his feelings. He claims he is really afraid and finds it difficult. The elderly man compliments him and advises him to keep up his hard effort. The old man obviously simply wants more money. Our lad thanks him in an inappropriate manner. Then the president tells Yeonji that, based on last year's criteria, she would have come first. He exhorts her to keep developing since the business depends on more people with her kind of talent. She is grateful for his help. He reportedly fixed her heart issue. She so gets her certificate as well. They are so let go, and the training camp is formally finished. Now they had to wait for the official results to find out which department each of them would be allocated. Right now, though, they had 5 days off. They would get a note pointing to their department at this period. Our lad, though, was thinking he still had to do. He was indeed delighted as he would be getting the potion meant to cure everything. He hurriedly ran out. But see how smart the lad is. Presumably, he intends to treat his mother with the elixir. He thought it didn't matter even though he still suffered with back discomfort. That was truly important, should she be cured. He looked over the patient list, though, and her name was absent, just as he held the mystical potion in hand. The hospital specialist had informed him a few days earlier that her disease had progressed and they were unable to treat her there either. Given they were among the greatest in Korea, Hanwol questioned how that was feasible. The doctor advised him to cool off and said that, given his medical background, he should know. Hanwol just questioned whether there was indeed no alternative approach to handle things. The doctor said that maintaining her current quality of life was the greatest choice available right now. She also wanted that. The protagonist's mother informed him he may leave the room since his sister was on her way to fetch him up. Still, he said no. She should not fear. He would be looking after her going forward. Our lad opened the door at that point. Hanwol seemed astonished, and his mother even more since she hadn't seen her kid in days. Though I assumed mom had already passed away, she was standing before our lad. He inquired as to her hospital discharge reason. She claimed she had previously told the physicians she wanted to get home. Our lad claimed her treatment wasn't completed, therefore she couldn't do it. She stated, then she had something to explain. She should not worry though, our lad claimed he could handle it, and he softly hugged her from then. She then started crying, right guys, apologizing to him. A little later, they were headed back home. She asked Hanwol in the taxi why he had insisted on having them come separately. He told her he wanted to discuss something in private. Hee-jung, he said her name, then stopped speaking. And man, did he simply propose to her. If I were startled, consider her feelings. She advised him to live his life and inquired what he was talking about. He claimed he would have liked to have lived with Hae-jin and regretted letting her stay with her, hence this was the life he wanted. But my man, right now, you are pushing this on her. You would stick at her side till one of them passed away, he added. To be honest, though, that promise sounded really weak. She urged him to quit complicate matters. When our lad got back home, he questioned why nobody else was there yet. Then Hanwol came out from the room and claimed she had fallen asleep from the painkillers. They both stopped speaking. Rising, he stated he had some things to take care of, but would be back. He had to go. Our lad grinned and nodded thanks. He apparently still does not know that the man proposed to his mother. He is bidding farewell in tranquility. Hanwol then turns and yells at him, though. Ask what it is with that perplexed expression on his face. He advises not to panic. He will look after his mother. Should something happen, just call him. He then closes the door. Our lad walks to the room his mother is asleep in. Man simply used the miracle potion already. He stopped drawing that depressed face. No, though, he stands there stating his mother has gone through a lot. Here he is, nonetheless, clutching the vibrantly colored medication. With this, he expected she would be healed. Still, oddly, the liquid wasn't flowing. He questioned what was happening. The troll system advised him to approach since it required proximity to business. The potion only came active at that point. Just a mess. The system would, I assumed, only let him utilize it. That caused a healing effect. That is as it ought to be. The small system fixing any issue our lad faces. Why the rest of the drink wasn't being consumed intrigued him. At that point, the system told him he had already consumed the required dosage. He was perplexed, without knowing anything, this fool, and the system advised him to heal his back with the remaining. Our lad began to question why it seemed the system knew he would use it on his mother first, then on himself. She got up the next morning feeling unusual. Why was she not in agony? It resembled some sort of magical occurrence devoid of logic. And our lad was smiling broadly as well, that crafty employee, monarch of systems. Though he wanted to thank them, he knew nothing about this person. Hanwell showed there a bit later and inquired about her actual state of health and whether she wanted to down the stairs. She claimed she woke up feeling strong and that she could walk on her own indeed. She then questioned whether by chance she wasn't in a dream and would shortly wake up. First, Hanwell advised they should find out what happened by consulting the doctor. Obviously, the testing verified that the whole illness had vanished. There was no doubting the results, even if they found it shocking. Being a doctor, Hanwell persisted since he sought a better justification. Ultimately, though, everyone had to come to terms with the fact that it was incomprehensible. Although miracles couldn't be discounted, he added they would have to monitor events. A few days went by, and they settled into their new existence. Our lad got a note declaring he had passed the first round of the Strategic Planning Office choice. Man, when will he at last find employment for the sake of God? 30 chapters already have gone by. One of them was grumbling about getting just 2.2 million instead of 3. Jin Young clarified that they merely received 80% of their pay while still in training. One questioned the man sporting the red tie whether his name was Dong Hoon. That stupid buddy of our protagonist, Kim In-soo, first identified herself. They are all discussing their 26-year-old status. Dong Hoon claims he is 28 nonetheless, since he studied overseas. When the man shows up, they greet one another. When he probes if they all registered for strategic planning, they say they did. Saying they have little time, the man orders everyone to dash to the meeting room. He welcomes everyone. He tells them then that they can only really join this club after 3 years of employment. Following this time, they will choose which of the 5 will actually go forward. Jin Young wonders what they would be doing for the next 2 to 3 years then. The man seems to overlook him and claims that strategic planning is known as the flower of Elsem. What happens, he wonders, when a plant fails to bloom? Clearly, Jin Young notes, it does not replicate. According to the man, some plants die this way, and this is how some others die. Therefore, a company must remain expanding for the future, since one that is declining will not be able to thrive on the global scene. All of them will thus have to grow to be the company's flowers. They will have to learn on their own since they cannot be guided toward becoming a flower. He adds there are names of some departments there. Thus, they will choose where they will work after removing the cap from his pen. Confused, Tae-sok believes everything will be haphazard. His companion from poor means finds herself in life insurance. Must be really dull as heck. Jin Young presumably watches television all day before visiting quality control for gadgets. Dong Hoon winds up in HR, which seems as uninteresting. Yeonji visits the section on consumer and household appliance sales. The guy says he doesn't need to explain which department our lad is going to be part of as there is only one left, so he knows where he is heading. Every department would evaluate them in 2 months to gauge their competency. When the fool questions what comes next, the man answers he will be moving to another department. A few days later, the scene changes. Our lad is on the bus right now. His way of life has evolved. Alternatively, not since an automobile starts to show. It is Han Wool who promises to bring him to a nearer station. Our lad responds that he does already have the service room's number. Our lad is apparently going to live with Han Wool. He urges him not to worry and to only depart after he is married. Our lad thanks him, noting it's great to live in Seoul. Then he claims it's been some time since he complained about his back and queries how it's doing. Ready to share, our lad chuckles. There is a flashback to the time his mother woke up asking whether it was a miracle. Happy, our lad asked jokingly if she wanted to drink the LGBT potion as well. The system advised him to use that awful potion on his back, and fortunately, he listened and considered messing about and storing it for later. He felt a warm sensation in his back, obviously, but he was all shining and the discomfort vanished too right away. But just then his mother yelled from behind the door as it opened. The reverse system advised him to hide the elixir. She wondered what he was doing there as she opened the door. Hanwoo reminds him back in the present that merely send a message if he needs any painkillers. Still, he should ideally tell his mother soon and schedule surgery. Our lad claims he will visit the hospital shortly for an assessment, and that he understands Min-sung is seen at the workplace walking back and forth till he spots a small piece of paper and heads to investigate it. And he gets all thrilled seeing Taesuk's name there. He wonders whether the lad chose to visit that place for strategic planning or another reason. The manager passes by just then and yells out to him. He tells him he will be teaching him as Tae-seuk, a lad who will begin working, needs instruction. Every time he brings someone under his wing, the manager claims he sells less and loses money. Min-sung says it's good since they receive a better employee in exchange. The manager says he's free to do so if that's what he wants to do, and notes the lad seems to be at the downstairs coffee machine since he misplaced his ID badge. Min-sung notes that is odd. That is not like him to do. Who are you? He wonders when he gets there. Oh my. Check out the fifth Taesuk. He encountered a fresh hire. He recognizes Min-sung as soon as he sees him and asks if he wasn't the one in charge of getting likes on the video, enabling Manhwa Breakdown to create more delicious content for his audience. Ring the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.